It's a beautiful Saturday morning here in Alpharetta, and we are going to be kicking things off with the Smite Challenges circuit today. My name is Gormizer. Mifflin's on the desk with me, and we're going over to Europe here in the SCC, watching the Wargs take on the Mambo. A lot of fun, and I think an interesting dynamic to be had, because we got to see these teams a few weeks ago playing on this new patch. And now it's just going to be fun to see how they've adapted to it. A couple of weeks of practice. We've seen a few sets so far this week. Nothing but 2-0s so far. And you had looked at me prior to this and said, yeah, this one's probably going to go 3. So really, whether that was like a feeling in the air for you or just something that you could maybe say about either Europe or just the way games are going. Lengthy right now. Yesterday in the SBL, we had some really good games. So I feel like everything's up in the air here in the 9-5 bonus. With some of the Hunter nerfs, Mifflin, but not enough.
Just call it the Hunter nerf patch, but you're right to say it wasn't enough. I was surprised watching from home yesterday, seeing how much Hunter
There's
emphasis
just all
there
over
was.
the place.
Yeah, they're just locked in. They're loving that role regardless. But I brought up the fact that I thought this might go 3 because the Wargs and Mambo were so close during the Masters event. We knew that Mambo may have been playing on ping, right? So it's not exactly the most even of playing fields. Not that the playing field has been evened yet again. I'm expecting some highly competitive matches.
Yeah, you can see here, we're watching the Mambo and the Wargs. That's where you're at right now on this schedule. And the other two sets, you might have noticed because of patch notes on Thursday. Wow, geez, days, hard to do. 2 sets weren't shown because we had patch notes. We wanted to watch that. We wanted to see what was going to be coming in 9-6, Lancelot, all the cool news that came with that. And so a couple of these sets, instead of being on Thursday, are going to be broadcast after SBL. There's one going to be after SBL today. That's the Gladiators and the Ravens. Then one after SBL tomorrow, the Scorpions and the Ferrymen. So if you watch this today, and then you watch set 1 of SBL, Dragons Valks, and you watch set 2 SBL, Bolts Scarabs, and then you're just like, man, that wasn't enough Smite for me. Good news for you. This is the one day potentially this year that you are going to be able to get even more. Another set afterward. And a lot of fun, because when you look at it, this team, specifically Hex Mambo Mifflin, this is a team that I almost always have high expectations for. Sometimes they come in swinging and exactly what you would expect from a team with all these names. And I think a lot of it comes around, the resurgence of them specifically from solo lane. They picked up Deathwalker, and then you add in Johnny, Zeros, you have Trickstank, Echrome. Like every single player on this team's a heavy hitter. And it feels like whatever it was they did, that solo lane swap, helped uplift this team, and maybe morale, maybe comms, whatever it was, it worked.
Yeah, Deathwalker has been a great advent for this squad, has really upped the rotation game, I think is what it was. He's been getting involved a little bit earlier than what we'll see from some of these other solo laners. Not recently, though, as in 9-5, it seems like these solo laners are very adept and willing to wait till level 20 to leave that lane, especially on some of Deathwalker's signature picks, like the Hades. We've been seeing a whole lot of Bumba's Hammer Hades, and it is incredibly hard to deal with, but it does take a little while to hit the ground running. I thought that we would see Hex Mambo fall off a little bit, though, in 9-5, considering one of their greatest win conditions, the things that have really been lining up for them the most throughout the last couple of years, is this aggressive style of play from Trickstank in particular. He loves to play things like the Sobek, like the Bacchus, get involved very early on. I believe it was Aggro last year who said this is one of the most degenerative support players we've ever seen because of the lack of respect that he shows his opposition. And in 9-5, it's just so much harder to leverage that early game aggression because of how survivable everybody was.
Yeah.
But in these situations, Trickstank has very clearly adapted, and he's shifted up his style a little bit, has become a more so, not resigned, but refined, I think is probably the better way to put it, in that he's not getting overly aggressive. I would almost say it's a similar parallel journey that we've seen from like Awesome Jake throughout the last couple of years, where he comes into the league and he's just over-aggressive and has slowly kind of reined it in.
It's going to be interesting to see how they take this matchup. Last time these two met was at Masters. They actually was a 2-0 for the Mambo, which is maybe news for the Wargs on the other side, something that they have to be able to bounce back from. A lot of play from this team throughout a lot of this, but I mean, even now, you can go back and look at where this matchup was, and it's specifically, again, tons of players that you know are really good. You've got Angry, you've got Sarpei, you've got Spuddy, Okana, and of course Pred's over there. And they've made a lot of impactful plays, even against this team, as you can see there with a good first blood. But it is that consistency of traveling into the late game, being able to find those wins and making sure they stay ahead, things like that have been a little troublesome for them. They were knocked out by the Mambo. The Mambo then immediately went on to get knocked out by the Wardens. So a lot of fun stuff, I think, that happened at Masters. But that keeps the conversation going here. The Wargs at this point may be looking for a little bit of revenge of getting knocked out of the tournament.
Yeah, it's certainly a revenge kill situation I'm thinking for this team, and a team that I thought made great strides throughout the duration of the Masters event, actually adapting some of those NA stylings. We saw that they were both regions rather were kind of adapting to each other's style and taking bits and pieces that work here and there.
Oh.
And I'd argue that the Wargs really have done a great job of doing that so far. Namely, Spudio has been a standout for me. I know that he was like the last guy on the screen, but this dude has been very, very consistent in that ADC role, and it's an ADC meta.
Well, I've learned that I need to do my reading a little bit more because the team that did get 2-0'd by the Hex Mambo aren't the same team anymore. Angry, who I usually hang my hat on with when it comes to this roster, is not playing with them anymore. Sap7 from the Highland Ravens has been picked up in the mid lane here. So that one, I mean, that's one of 3 changes that are listed here, but that one's maybe the biggest. I think Sap is a good player, but Angry was like my pick for if you had to grab like there's maybe 2 or 3 names on the list of who do you go to next for mid laners. One of them got picked up or actually I guess 2 of them because BennyQ as well as Pagon got scooped in here. Angry was on that list for me as someone who had been very prominent. We'll see, I guess, how this affects the Wards. Usually not too well at the very beginning of a phase. We'll have to watch, though, because that means that this is a set that if they win it, that's, first off, insane for them. But 2, it means they're off for a really, really good phase 2. But if they lose, phase 2's nuts long, so it's really not going to be maybe as stressful for them if it's not as good as they would like.
And just top to bottom, to break it down one more time in case you couldn't get it. Kana out for Kha'Zix, Angry out for Sap7, and Preds is now replaced by Ollie. And I am told these are all permanent changes. This is going to be the new squad going forward. So all that analysis we just did on the desk, all the thought processes, the mental gymnastics as we try to figure out how this matchup is going to look, is worthless. Because we don't know what this team is anymore. You replace one guy, that changes your team a pretty significant amount. You change 2 people, it's a completely different squad. 3 people out, this is... It might as well not even have the same name.
And that's actually, the fun thing, because like that used to be the rule, right? And I think it might still be for, you had to keep 3 in order to be registered as like the same team. If it was your spot, if you had to have 3. But that was usually like year-to-year stuff, conversation like that. So losing literally 3 people means you are a different team in the eyes of rules. And so we'll have to see how this goes. Yamoja Ram gets locked in, something that we saw in some of those highlights, although admittedly I think I saw Mambo playing them, not the Wargs. We'll see how that works out. We do get the Heimdall pickup, which I will say almost and has been in the past a must ban against the Mambo because the rest of the team could feed their brains out, but for some reason you get to 23 minutes and E-Chrome on Heimdall just hits harder. Something that was a forced ban, but you had mentioned this as well, the Hades that has been really big for Deathwalker over there. It's like so far this draft is just Hex Mambo. It's not really like, cool, can we play the meta? Cool, can we play what's awesome? Let's just play us, and I kind of like it.
That's been their MO since like day one. The Hex Mambo has not once concerned themselves with what their opposition are doing or what anybody else in the meta is doing, what the SPL's up to. Instead, it's always been, hey, these are the picks that we like to play a lot. Let's try and build some compositions around that can work out, and they've done a great job adapting their style to work up against what everybody else is doing in these leagues. So expect a whole lot of this throughout the year from Hex Mambo. A lot of the Heimdalls, a lot of the Hades, regardless of the meta. I think that's generally what we're going to be looking towards, and that's continued now post second phase of bans. Disco locked in. This is one of the only squads doing it.
Like outside of the ROM, a lot of what we've seen on the Wargs was stuff that was, well, even the ROM to an extent. Like Cyclone Spin likes to play it every now and then. He's maybe not like the top tier hunter people are going to, considering, you know, you still got your Ulers, your Chernobyls right now are very popular. Agni maybe the second or maybe even the least likely to be picked up in some of the more meta quote-unquote matches. Pick rate. But at this point, you know, with the Bear... Thanks, man. The Baron with the Kali and with the Yamoja, it feels like they are pretty much, well, at least part of them playing the tier list. Now, Fafnir to lock it in on the other side, maybe the most in pick that the Mambo have, but still something that works really well for Tricks. This is going to be a treat because it is kind of like playing what we've seen be more successful in 9-5 versus what we've seen be successful for the Hex Mambo.
Yeah, this Fafnir lock-in is curious to me. You don't have a standard auto-attacker composition, so Coerce isn't going to get the full value that you would see. Generally, you want like a double hunter or auto-attack assassin. You don't really have that, so it's all about that initiation. you're still boosting burn around objectives, but not to the same extent that I think we're all used to seeing from a Fafnir.
Well, the good news is we'll find out whether or not it is going to work out well. Like you said, missing some of the synergy, but we're here in game number 1, Wargs versus Mambo. Now, you're going to see a lot of names, and I think a lot of recognizable ones over on the left. Although I will say Ollie is a name that I recognize, but will admit cannot bring in, my brain does not immediately have any information to provide about them. So someone that has been in the scene and has played competitively, but you know, you get Sap, you get Kha'Zix, a couple of players that have on their own made very large splashes. And I guess there's always the question, I mean, with new teams, you get to talk about, man, what are your comms like together? How well do you guys get along? Presumably well, because you just dropped 3 members. And, you know, trying to get back into a state where, like, you feel at your best competitively. And unfortunately, I'm going to say this, week 1, usually 2 weeks after having a huge change-up, is not typically when you're going to be at your peak just yet.
No, it's going to take a little while for this team to figure out exactly how they're going to play. I'm expecting even different styling, like this composition likely won't even play the same style of Smite that we're used to. Maybe they're not looking for that late game emphasis. Maybe it's more so towards the mid game. I would never say that the Nieflheim Wargs are an objective-oriented team, but this is no longer the Nieflheim Wargs that we're used to seeing, so they very well could be. But you bring up Ollie, and I figure might as well use the notes given to us by production. Last seen on Aerial's Arise, it's an EU PS4 team. That was back in around 2019. Since then, Ollie's been playing in the SOC, kind of honing his style there and trying to iterate and find an opportunity to step up, and has done so now an entire league from SOC to SEC, an Ollie story.
I like that. We're going to get on this. We're making a brand new documentary. Well, only if they win a ton, right? Like that'd be if they come in.
If Ollie makes it to Worlds,
and they're
I'll make a
successful.
doc.
Yeah, right. Someone's gonna clip this, and then if they make it to Worlds, you're going to have that tweeted at you. I want you to know. I'm just excited to watch how this ends up going because, again, a lot of the players on both of these squads I've had very impressive moments with. It's easy to say for Hex Mambo. Dominant last year. And, of course, even ignoring just that, Johnny, you know, has a pentakill against the Kings in the SBL. Has a long, good career in the SCC. And then prior to that was, like, on Burrito, I think, in the SBL for a little bit as well. So, like, a lot of play there. Deathwalker has been to World Championships. Trickstank, guess what? He's been on the top of the world as well.
Deathwalker?
Now he's in a little bit of trouble going for the blue buff invade. Johnny's here to save him. They don't have ults yet, though. So they're going to get chased down. Kali getting a first blood kill would be important here. Sarpei wants a little more, but I don't know if they have the damage to do so. Not with how the Howers are in this 9-5 patch. They're going to have to pull it back, but that was a lot of aggression from Hex Mambo.
It was. Deathwalker just calling the bluff. Sarpei was not willing to engage. I thought maybe we'd see the Kali try and put some damage in while Deathwalker was standing inside the minion wave, but he holds on to all of his abilities, Sarpei that is, until Deathwalker dedicates the leap to the blue buff. But had he applied damage a little bit sooner, could have potentially made it a little bit easier to defend the blue. You're not really sustaining that much as Hades at level 3. Could have found a couple more opportunities. The sooner you get your cooldowns on cooldown, the sooner you can use them again. But a very lackadaisical approach to that gank from Sarpei, and Deathwalker just playing with the utmost confidence. I mean, that was a level 3 Hades proxying wave, solo invading blue. Eventually, the Hunbot shows up, but Johnny didn't really do a whole lot for Peel. Gotta feel like that could have gone a lot better for the Wargs.
And you gotta feel like Deathwalker, like that's a mental that I feel like shakes you, right? If you see the other guy not caring.
I can't believe he did that.
Like the way he just played it just showcases, and like, you know, to the point where it's just confidence that radiates out from Deathwalker. We've seen this Hades pick before. It skips the starter, as you can see here, and has gone immediately into a Bancroft style, and it is focusing just on getting that power, that lifesteal, that survivability in lane.
And Bancroft's passive synergizes very well with Pillars of Agony. Generally, you make a massive target of yourself, and as you get lower HP, Bancroft's gets a little bit more value. So it's just a decent pickup. It also synergizes well with the sustain in-lane style, which is exactly what Hades has. Devour Souls obviously affording you a heal up to 3 minions, and Bancroft's having magical lifesteal means you're healing even more.
You know, it's interesting to see him in the exact same spot Pillar of Agony is always a good topic of conversation. Deathwalker now in a little bit more trouble. Sarpe, do you have the damage this time? And the ult is going to be there. There's the Fear No Evil, though. And the peel, good from Johnny. Gets Deathwalker under the tower line. Sarpe and Kha'Zix still playing a little more aggressive, though. Blue buff invade is what they have in mind. Deathwalker has not backed off with the Bancross and Hades. He should be able to heal a pretty good amount off of this. Oh my god, full health bar. Still has the Pillar of Agony, but now is stuck between, well, a rock and a hard place. The tier 1 tower for the Wargs and the Wargs themselves. The dash, still coming off cooldown, goes over the wall. Jump from Sarpe, the chase is on. There's gonna be the fear, a little bit of healing, but Sarpe, you have to be able to get this one. Deathwalker's so close to dead, and Sarpe is able to get the first blood and walk out with their life.
So Deathwalker gets to play with the utmost confidence for 5 uninterrupted minutes, and then 30 seconds into the 5-minute mark, finally gets punished for that aggressive positioning. Takes a while, though. With all that sustained, Deathwalker nearly kept it interesting, but Sarpe able to finish off that kill. Look, Deathwalker's allowed to make plays like that because of the amount of pressure he's already established in lane. Even in giving over first blood to the Nieflheim Wargs, gold is still equalized. He's still got level parity up against Kha'Zix in lane. Kha'Zix has been not really getting his own farm from blue buffs. Back camps getting taken by Deathwalker pretty consistently as well. So even in falling down, you're dead even. And you've got the faster build as well. Bancroft's Talon as opposed to Warlock Staff in the first slot. Kha'Zix not even stacking it up just yet. So I think Deathwalker takes the calculated risk of saying, hey, even if I die, it's not a massive deal. If I don't die, I'm just pushing my lead further and further.
When we talk about it a lot, well, I say we. I feel like it was a me and aggro thing. We like to bring it up maybe too often, but like the prots that you get in Pillar of Agony,
it's a lot.
You mentioned the Bancross Talon going in with that, so it's like not only are you extra tanky, but also you're going to get extra lifesteal if you drop too low. And yeah, it goes up. So yeah, your prots at base, just protections, is 60, while giving a debuff to everybody else. But it goes up to 160, Miff. That's so much. That's so much. I mean, you get a free item while you're ulting, essentially.
That's like a free
that's
3
that's
items.
2 items. Yeah, 3.
It's protections. It's not physical prots. It's not magic prots. It's
just
both.
protections.
160 each. I think you're averaging like 50 from most items. Yeah, you got 3 items right there from Hades.
That's
but
nuts.
You're also stationary.
Because it's 3 fizz, 3 magical.
You're also stationary, though, so there's some downsides to it. Probably won't get to see those downsides just here. Surprised that Sarpe has been willing to make these rotations so consistently. That's partially why Kha'Zix isn't ahead at all. He's been splitting so much farm.
Yeah, it's impressive to see where they have been. And again, a little bit ahead. That kill maybe helping out.
Oh,
There's going to be an apple on the Sap, though. It's going to burst. Sap's barely alive right now. Luckily for them, that tier 2 exists. That was so close to being a kill for the Mambo Sap. Able to get out of there. Trix Tank, Johnny, Zeros going for the red buff invade. Successfully steal it away. Sarpe's getting low. Trix Tank drops the ward. It feels like Trix doesn't want these kills. They keep slipping through their fingers. And he doesn't want them to get away. They're just playing aggressive. Not yet stealing from the Obelisk. Going for the purple buff invade. Scooped up by Echrome pretty easily. And now Pillar of Agony over on the other side. Going to be met with the life of the party. 2 CSC immune. Well, just players going against each other. And that one felt the most Warrior-esque of any matchup we've seen here without Warriors. It's just 2 guys smacking each other around.
Both with a whole lot of sustain in lane as well. And finally, we're starting to see some of that lead for Kha'Zix. About a half level over Deathwalker. So as long as Kha'Zix is able to keep this fight at range, he should have an advantage. Deathwalker, on the other hand, obviously wants to get into point blank. Devour Souls, not a very large range ability. The Fear, similarly, pretty short range as well. So Kha'Zix is going to be playing at max at every opportunity, just trying to match up some of that sustain that Deathwalker gets. Again, Baron Samdi does not heal off wave, he heals off gods. Deathwalker heals off wave with Hades. So it's a lot easier to execute on that sustain style.
And just keeping yourselves, I want to just say comfortable, I guess, if you're a solo laner. Like Kha'Zix at this point kind of knowing, cool, I'm not going to die. I'm starting to stack up this Warlock staff. I'm going to have a decent amount of health. I'm not as stressed out about what this Hades can do if I'm full health. And of course, Deathwalker saying, I full heal off a wave, I don't care. He's fine. And so I turn our attention instead to the jungler. Sarpe gets first blood on a Kali, usually something I think that is way more outspoken. Golden Blade finish, looking like it's going to be the Chin size next. Already a very good start for this. Versus the Hunbats, we've seen one Fear No Evil so far, and it was just for Peel.
It was a really good one.
Yeah, but so far it hasn't been this eye-opening Hunbat's level of play?
Well, that's probably reflective of his build as well. Johnny going for a much slower style of build, Transcendence in the first slot, still trying to stack that up, doesn't quite have, you know, like a Jotun's Wrath, that CDR that you're used to seeing that would allow him to use Fear No Evil essentially every minute or so. So give him a couple of moments to finish up this second item, and then I'll think we'll see a little bit more from Johnny. Hex Mambo are a squad that are very, very willing to take this to late-game team fights, and Hunbots is a late-game team fight monster. Well, an ult bot, but still a monster in his own regard. Give him some time. Johnny will get there.
That is always fun to watch. How these, again, will shake out thoroughly throughout all of this. But the Wargs, not really ahead. In fact, negative ahead. They're behind,
they're behind.
as it turns out, with gold, which is impressive. I mean, First Blood's not worth a crazy amount. You can see where that happened just by the jump in the chart, about 600 gold that pulled it away, but Mambo are just farming a little bit better. And part of it's farming a little bit better, part of it's also stripping away jungle buffs. The red buffs, purple buffs, blue buffs have all
of them
been invaded. Pretty much everything, yeah, except speed.
And that's impossible to invade.
And, well, only because they aren't ahead enough, right? Like, there's a certain point where you're ahead enough to start invading that speed buff, but it's been vastly dangerous, and also there's tier 2s up. Don't do it. But Pyromancers, Gold Furies, they're on the table. Like, at this point, you know, it feels like the Wargs don't have as much control on the map as they could, even though they've been maybe the ones more actively looking for the fights. Actively starting the fights. I don't think they're looking for them, but they're starting them in an engaging.
As far as Soul Lane is concerned, the Wargs are getting active, all right? Sarpe is getting active in the Soul Lane. Hex Mambo, as a whole, I would argue, have been all over the enemy jungle for the most part. So that's likely why we're not seeing the pace from the Nieflheim Wargs that you would expect, considering just looking at the top of the screen, 1-0, you would expect them to be winning. Hex Mambo, on the other hand, and this is both teams actually, don't really have the best compositions for looking towards these objectives. Generally, we'll see Pyromancer pulled the very moment that it spawns, but looking at what Hex Mambo is bringing, they don't really have consistent auto attackers, their burn potential isn't incredibly high, and they don't particularly have the greatest confirmation either, so it's all about finding a pick, finding a fight, then rotating in. Same can be said of the Wargs.
Well, there's some good damage being dished out by both mid laners. Not a whole ton, though. Trix even drops a horrific down there to slow off any chase on the Zero, specifically the Kali, as the rotation came in, that and the Yamoja. And just making sure that the pace stays more or less the same. I like where Ekrom's head is at, though. With purple respawning, you want to get this farm. You're going to try to get aggressive.
Sarpe.
Remember, these are a little tankier in terms of how the jungle buff is, maybe a little tankier in terms of how all the gods are, but Sarpe has just been getting hit. A good stun from Trix could open up a conversation.
Yikes.
Fear No Evil, a little too late. The jump good from Sarpe. The blink from Johnny gets them in a disengage. Walls up from Ollie, and the snipes coming down from Spudio. It's not enough damage to turn any fight around onto Hex Mambo.
Yeah, both these teams just waiting for something to open up the door. Sarpe whiffs the stun because Johnny blinks it out. Sarpe sticks to him knowing that the leap is down, but not quite enough damage. Ollie rotates in, but River's Rebuke was just not very good there, very easily evaded by Hex Mambo. And at the end of the day, the only thing that really goes down is Ekrom takes away the purple buff and then immediately disengages himself. Trix Tank could have been in some trouble there, but no CC means no chance for the Wargs to find any sort of impactful damage.
So, I'm going to ask you,
please.
You know, we watched about Devo's Gauntlets 2 weeks ago. It was very big. Again, got hit with the nerf alongside the Gilded Arrow, which was actually kind of surprising because Spudio has still gone for the arrow start. Which admittedly, you know, free money's free money. It's just less free money than you got before. From 7 gold to 3, I believe, per proc.
Yes, sir.
That it's going to be getting. Gone for the Bloodforge into the Wind Demon. Like, very much what we were watching and seeing at Masters. The other side, Ekrom is playing a lot with what we saw a little bit more yesterday. The Ichaival, the Aussie. And it feels like that kind of build favors a Heimdall more than like a Lifesteal crit build does with his auto attack chain, right? I guess half
somewhat.
and half.
It's more so, hard. If you're building Ichaival, that means you want to box. That is all that tells me. Is okay. You want to 1v1 your opposition, and Ekrom's got a lead. He's one of the hardest hitting hunters in the game thanks to that auto attack chain. Spudio's gone for a relatively slow build. Doesn't really have the sustain to match up early game until that Bloodforge is finished. And Bloodforge is expensive, by the way, 2,700, I believe. and then it goes into the Wind Demon as well, so it doesn't really get any fight opportunity with that item tree until you get to the 3rd tier. So Echrome was able to leverage this Ichavail early on to control these neutral camps in the duo lane, which are so important as they respawn so quickly, and that's where that lead has been established. 2 entire levels over to the Heimdall. And now we're starting to see that adaptation into the crit tree where you can start, again, looking towards objectives. That's one of the best assets crit brings, is the ability to just shred Gold Furies and Pyros.
And when you have a ROM, all of a sudden, not just steal, but secure potential exists there. Good bombs coming from Sap. Although, again, and this is something that it just feels like every time I look at the damage being done by the Wargs, it's almost been consistently this way. They hit a lot there. And nobody on Mambo looked worse for wear, despite it. So it may be something that needs to be looked at for them, is the fact that it's just too tanky, too much to maybe handle on the other side. Especially now with buffs getting invaded pretty much on left and right pretty consistently. Kha'Zix's, a level lead earlier has slowly disappeared. The gold lead that you theoretically could have attained from a First Blood that never truly existed has been stripped away and then some. Looking at, what, 1,300, almost 2,000 gold. They can continue pushing this route. You've got a level lead for both players in the duo lane. Almost 2 levels there for Echrome, though. It feels like the Mambo are finding everything they want. And the way they, I mean, this is how they've been playing all year, right? They are going to play slow. They're going to play 16 minutes, 0 kills. They're going to play 25 minutes, 0 kills. They're just going to farm better than you. And by the time you actually try to take a fight, they're going to be much further ahead. A few thousand gold. They're going to have extra items. And then you're going to get into an FG fight, Nieflheim, and it's all going to crumble underneath you because you didn't expect them to hit as hard as they do.
But I'd argue Hex Mambo generally has a larger lead by this portion of the game. Generally, their farm is so much better than their opposition that we're talking 3, 4, 5,000 gold as we start to approach that 20-minute mark. As time goes on, gold means less. So that's the double-edged sword of this style. Sure, we'll out-farm you by the time we get to the late-game team fight, but if by the first time we decided to leverage our lead was that late-game team fight, that gold lead doesn't mean nearly as much. And 1,000 gold, 20, 25 minutes into the game, that's nothing. That's like a tier 1 item, or maybe a couple awards for everybody, or a singular upgrade towards one of your relics. This is not a massive gap, but you got to evaluate team fight compositions. Which one of these squads is going to feel better in the 5-on-5? I'd argue it's not so simple. Hex Mambo sure have got decent CC control, Deathwalker with Pillars of Agony, the Fear No Evil from Hanbots, Johnny out of the jungle, both very great just space control tools around these team fights, could catch out some of these CC immune lacking gods on the side of the Wargs. But when you got to evaluate late game scaling, Deathwalker's healing is on waves. We talked about that earlier. That's a PvE healer. That doesn't really work in jungle team fights. Kha'Zix, on the other hand, is going to be able to heal his entire team just about every single time.
True.
And Sarpei scales very well.
Trying to get that, like, in-combat healing from a Hades, like, if they're stacked up
It's
enough for
nearly
you
impossible.
to do that, then they're playing wrong at that point. Simultaneously, your team's playing wrong because you have to hug him to get the heal. Luckily for them, if you're a PvE healer, and right now your team's just playing PvE, they still have 0 kills on the board, but a Gold Fury gets added to their account. So now they're starting to try and push that gold a little bit more. And notably, I look down the lists, most of it is in specifically the duo lane, and it's almost all on Echrome. And when you look at net worth, yeah, he's up near the top with how well they've been farming. Not even 400 gold, but it seems like maybe it's the golden hand that's separating them. And cost of items, I keep forgetting that. You had mentioned it earlier already. Bloodforge, such a heavy early investment that, yeah, you're technically behind a tier 2 at this point, but it's not really that much gold because of how hard you had to go in the item build. And now Spuddy has got a crit item online, the Silver Branch. You've got good attack speed. It feels like this is going to slowly start being a more quote-unquote even game in the duo lane, except for the 3-level difference.
3-level difference
That's pretty big.
doesn't feel great, but those late game levels, Hunters have like an inflection point around level 16 where itemization is more important, which we can see now. Echrome in some trouble.
Yeah, the shots are good. Echrome gets out of there. Not very far. Aussie passive, it can put in a lot of hard work, but I don't think it's going to put in enough work there. 2-0 now lead for the Wargs. And that's a hefty kill to be able to pick up your 3 levels down on your lane opponent who's been out farming you the entire time. That feels good to pick up.
But you need to do something with it. You're still behind. You got the kill. You're 2-0. but you're still down 2,000 gold. Every kill the Nieflheim Wargs have gotten has put them further behind because the Hex Mambo are just farming somewhere else on the map, or they're taking a greater Scorpion, or they're spawning up a Trebuchet, or something along those lines. I would have loved to see the Wargs, who still have 20 seconds, by the way, where there's going to be no Hunter on the map, where Echrom's going to spend time in the Grayscale, to have grouped up, either ran down the Pyromancer or ran down the Fire Giant itself. We're 20 some odd minutes in the game. Finding a pick and doing nothing with it, considering the pace, I feel like might just be a cardinal sin. These opportunities are not coming often. Quite literally, only twice in 20 minutes.
Now, though, you might have an opportunity arise on the other side. Snipes are going to come through here. Johnny misses out on one of those hits. That's enough to keep him alive and keep him going. Finally, a kill on the board for the Mambo. Johnny now just trying to get out with his life. Seems like Sarpeya is going to be a little too late to the rotation to try and catch him off guard. So a kill on board for 40 seconds left. 35 now that the Mambo have to play with. And you had just mentioned maybe being able to do something with it. They have the gold and now the numbers lead. They should be able to push something.
Yeah, go to Pyro, go to Fire Giant, go literally anywhere where you can force the Nieflheim Wargs to answer a difficult question. Resetting the neutral to continue farming up, I think just probably not the best use of your time. Well, again, still 15 seconds left on Spudio's respawn. Echrom's already level 20, has already hit the majority of his power spikes. I think it'd be pretty well suited to try and look somewhere else on the map. A pick on Kha'Zix would go a long way, but that's hard to come by.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of ults. There's going to be the Pillar of Agony and Beads out by Kha'Zix. So maybe next time, especially now that those two are staggered. I mean, you're talking about big team fight disruptive ults, and they're staggered in their timers. Johnny's going to have Fear No Evil before we see Deathwalker with his ult back, and vice versa whenever they go back on cooldown. So Pyromancer started up. You had been asking for this. They're going to do it. Wargs steal it away, Ollie, with the bubble bounce. Take it right from under their noses. And Mifflin, maybe they just wait too long.
Shame on me, I suppose. That's not even like Spudio getting involved, who was on the respawn. It's just Ollie walking up and very simply taking it away with a bubble. That is wild. Hex Mambo, we talked about it earlier, haven't got the greatest confirmation. But they've got confirmation to beat a Yamoja who's built 0 damage.
As someone who has played a lot of Yamoja and seen how much the bubble bounce can do.
It's like 40?
Yeah, it doesn't hit very hard.
Yeah.
Stealing an objective, impressive. Look, Ollie's making that kind of debut that you want in the SCC, where you walk forward. Yeah, the team's not been farming too great. You know, there's questions about like, okay, well, with 3 people being swapped in, what's this going to look like? Ollie sold me. You come in
already,
and yeah, well, look,
so
he just stole a Pyromancer from the Mambo. Whether or not it's going to be like a wide successful phase, I think depends a lot more on teamwork. But just as an individual player, yeah, I'm sold on Ollie in the SCC.
Congratulations, Ollie. You got a fan in Gormizer. Both teams resume their farm across the map,
I'd
but
be
we
so
are
tilted if I'm the Mambo, dude.
Would you be tilted? I wouldn't even be tilted. They're still ahead. They're still winning. This is still the largest gold lead
Yeah,
that
but
we've
you could be
seen from them.
winning more.
I suppose so. Yeah, you definitely could be. It's not an ideal scenario,
And in my mind, I like to win more. When I'm winning,
feels great.
I want to win harder.
Oh, Deathwalker jumps in. Not a whole lot of damage, though. Not just yet.
Kind of surprised. Well, not with the build when you look at it. Now Sarpei heals up a little bit. Sap as well, staying alive. And there's the emoji to come in and balance things out. I thought it was maybe going to be a little more explosive. 5 members of the Hex Mambo over on right. Mifflin, normally this leads directly into a Fire Giant. Right now it's just a D-Ward. They're going to start it up. There's the DPS, and they're going to be going for it. Burn online. Trix Tank takes a good chunk of damage, but transforms. Now has the Dragon
jumps
forward, is going to look for the zone. Fear No Evil ends up finding 2 because they backstep into it. And now Johnny with a huge play for his team. They move forward, and the kills are running through for the Mambo. A lot of low health bars, though. Deathwalker, Trix Tank have to play this careful. One of them's going to get taken down, but it's for 4 in trade. Sarpei, last man standing on the Wargs, and a fight goes catastrophic for the blue team.
Sarpei just takes the scenic route in that entire team fight. He wasn't there. He was only there to sink 2 auto attacks into Deathwalker towards the tail end, and Deathwalker had already done everything. He'd initiated for his team, channeled the ultimate, funneled the Nieflheim Wargs into a one small little corridor where Johnny can toss a Fear No Evil right behind him.
Oh no.
Gotta see more from Sarpei there. Had he been there sooner, I think that fight goes to the Wargs.
Well, you think gotta see more. They couldn't see him there. Oh, I thought Sarpe was going to go for a play. Instead, just backs in the mist. Avoids a deicide from happening. Mambo get the Fire Giant. Nieflheim, about 5 minutes ago, this team had 0 kills. Now they're up 5, 4 of them in one team fight. And the only person who doesn't have the FG is hi-rez on the other side. And so you're feeling pretty good about it. We just watched it. I mean, look at the build. Immediately into the Bancrofts, and then prots, right? You're building heavy in survivability here for Deathwalker. And it worked out pretty well. I mean, yes, ends up dying, but there was a long time that it took to commit just to kill one hi-rez.
And he was at 50% HP before the Fire Giant is even pulled, but utilizing Bumba's Hammer off of a ward, by the way, was able to resustain just about to about 100% HP. And I think that's going to be a little bit easier to do in some of these team fights once you start to approach these towers, these Phoenixes, those Bumba procs. Going to be even easier to apply yet again. Looking at the Nieflheim Wargs composition, though, they've got great base defense. Sap 7 on this Agni should be able to keep the waves at bay with relative ease. Kha'Zix applying his heal means that they can sit inside of their Phoenix a little bit longer, won't be forced to go back to their fountain nearly as often. The same could be said of Ali on this Yemoja. Lots of sustain afforded to the team there. But the Nieflheim Wargs have got a difficult situation in dealing with the initiation of Hex Mambo. Seems like they're not concerned about it if they're initiating themselves.
Yeah, it's one thing. You just got nearly decided in a fight. You push down a tier 2 despite the Fire Giant on the other side. Deathwalker pulls people in with Pillar of Agony. The walls from Yemoja only separating so much. Fear no evil against the wall, and Johnny is able to separate one, get the kill onto Ollie. Double kill as he picks up Sarpe, looking for 3, and they're going to find 4 in a row one more time. And that's back-to-back fights, 8 kills for the Mambo.
Just a strange decision to be on the Phoenix there, isn't it? I suppose the Wargs are hedging their bets saying, no way Hex Mambo is going to be 5 stacked on the defense, right? Like, they're going to be pushing somewhere on the map with their Fire Giant. Simply not the case. Things go poorly. You're not able to channel the death immunity from Sarpe as he's been CC'd out. A great stun from Trix Tank, making sure that this Kali wasn't allowed to get active. Beads were down, and then Kali goes down immediately afterward. But that is a incredibly high-risk play for relatively low reward.
Yeah.
Best case scenario, you get the Phoenix and that's it.
If you back off after the tier 2 for them, maybe
I thought that was game.
Yeah, a little bit.
I thought it was game, so maybe it was not as bad a call as I thought it was.
Realistically, yeah, well, Titan, very difficult to kill. They've got a lot of tanky minions with them. Oh, but the timer's not looking good for the Mambo. Kha'Zix, Spudio just now respawning. Luckily for them, it's going to be a little longer, though. Fire Giant putting in the work. 2 tier 2s, 2 Phoenixes, all in the span of about a minute. They started that with 3 minutes left on the timer, 2 minutes left. With 1 minute on the power play, I see Spudio, or Sarpe, sorry, going around the left-hand side. It looked like maybe they were going to look for some angles to try and go for the fight. Instead, it's going to be Hex Mambo again re-engaging. The damage is better on one side than it is the other. The Chaos team, once again, surging forward pretty confidently. And even though the healing numbers theoretically favor the Wargs here, Mifflin, they always are seen running back with very low health bars.
Can't heal a corpse. That's just the truth of it. The Nieflheim Wargs getting, I suppose, desperate might be the best way to describe it. These are desperate plays we're seeing. The Phoenix Siege was desperation, trying to make sure Hex Mambo don't get away with too much on this Fire Giant. That chase there, not exactly the best case scenario, considering you know Hex Mambo's cooldowns are coming back up. And then going for that play and going for the chase, the Wargs put their beads on pretty significant cooldowns. Both Sap 7 and Spudio forced to use their CC Immune Relic in that small exchange, so now 2 minutes where Hex Mambo can just hunt down these targets and potentially set up for an even easier Fire Giant, which is going to be spawning in about 1 minute. 60 seconds to play with, Hex Mambo that is, where the Nieflheim Wargs just won't have CC immunity available, and Johnny can just about one-shot you with this style of build if he's landing his ultimate. Even Deathwalker, to a certain extent, can lock you down. Maybe not now that he's picked up this mask. He's not exactly the heavy hitter that he once was, but is a lot more survivable and can act as that initiation and will be able to stick in there. One of the weaknesses we talked about earlier with Pillars of Agony, despite giving over 160 protections at this point and debuffing the enemy protections, is that you have to stand still against an ADC and an ADC meta, which is never ideal.
Yeah.
Well, Lono's mask means you're probably not too concerned about it.
I was going to say, this build from Deathwalker is like, I'm going to, look, when I pull you, If you're not Beedson, my team's going to kill you. I might not kill you, but you're going to die from this. And that's something that I think has to be said. I'm impressed because I don't think I've seen this many successful Pillars of Agony in a single game before. It has been very, again, granted, maybe some of it, not necessarily, I don't want to say gifted to him, but that one around the right side Phoenix probably doesn't happen if the Wargs are playing a little safer. So it has been impressive to see. Now we'll have to see if the Wargs can do something impressive to balance things out. Standing on a ward right now is Sarpei. Johnny's looking for maybe a solo isolation. Well, not even solo at this point. It is just looking for the fight. Fear No Evil goes wide. There's the destruction from Sarpei.
He's dead.
But now, yeah, upon landing, will end up dead. And a kill goes over to Echrome. Now getting aggressive as the rest of the squad. Pillar of Agony was used. Deathwalker low, but still alive. Johnny finds a second, and the team not surging quite as powerfully forward. Fall back, and they're looking for the EFG.
Deathwalker could take this indefinitely. Fire Giant hitting for 60 and Bumba's Hammer going a long way. That was another fight where Sarpei was trying to go for the flank, but as you called out, spotted on the ward, was immediately caught out by Hex Mambo, who decided to fold back and make sure that he wasn't allowed to go for that flank. The Nieflheim Wargs core 4 members were too far away to get in there and help out the Kali. I like the decision-making from Sarpei, saying, hey, I'm not getting out of this alive just about ever, so I might as well go for the high-impact play of trying to shut down Echrome. But because Sarpei had not had the beads available, through the realms means there's really not much the Kali can do. It's one of the great answers to channeled ultimate abilities is removing them from the playfield, epic uppercut, through the realms, both do that very well. Doesn't matter if you're death immune, if you're just not in the fight.
Well, right side Phoenix respawns, gets killed. Left side Phoenix just killed. Trebuchet on the left-hand side pushing as well. And I have a feeling mid Phoenix respawns. And it seems like it's going to survive at least for a few seconds here. So the Mambo try to regroup themselves, figure out where they want to go with their initiation. You had mentioned that earlier, the initiation from the Mambo being difficult to deal with. Beads now up for 3 members of the Wargs. Best time, it's under the Phoenix. You got to defend now. The Phoenix, though, is gone. And that's 3 now waves of fire minions that they're going to have to deal with. Trebuchet gets dealt with on left, but the minions go into the Titan room, and Deathwalker moves forward. Ollie throws up the walls. Seems like Mambo want to play this one safe.
Yeah, and as of now, Hex Mambo just trying to strip away the resources from Nieflheim Wargs. Taking away River's Rebuke is a great start, but that's about all they've gotten so far. Life of the party, that's a nice addition.
Yeah, pulls in, gets a stun, but there's Deathwalker with the pull onto Kha'Zix and to Ollie. And Ollie eats way too much damage. A kill for Trix Tank on the board as the Mambo go forward. 3 already down, and the Titan is the target. Destruction for Sarpei, but it is just buying time, and it's not enough. Gun landing goes down. The Titan follows right after the deicide, and Mambo win this one 16-3.
The Wargs just fall into Hex Mambo's pace there. It was an early game for the Wargs. Were they able to get a kill here or there, but were never quite able to turn it into anything. It was never, hey, we got a kill, let's go to Gold Fury. Hey, we got a kill, let's go to Pyromancers. Hey, we got a kill, I can farm my wave, and no one's going to be there to fight me. And that was the entirety of the early game for the Wargs. And Hex Mambo say, yeah, nobody's there fighting you in lane because we're farming like all the neutral camps. We're getting every bit of farm on the map, and that's where that, I suppose, natural lead is established. By the time we got to that 25-minute team fight, something you had brought up at the 10-minute mark was Hex Mambo are just going to have a lead and will likely have the advantage in the team fight. Well, you're a prophet, because that's exactly how it goes.
That's how they like to play, man. Is if they could just coast PvE for a little while, get all that farm. And like you said, though, we'd see ganks, you'd see the kill, and it'd be like, cool, you killed our dual laner? All right, we're going to invade your blue buff. We're going to take away all of your camps just to slow you down, and it works out well for them here. A win for the Mambo as they find themselves up 1-0 over the Wargs. We're going to find out whether they can close this one out in 2 right after this quick break.
The horsey, and horsey, don't you stop! Fido care! Fido!
I gave up dabbing for Lynn.
Cool. No more dabbing for Final. He looked at me and said, I'm going to be on that stage next year. I'm going to become a world champion.
Ripping through! Titan down, ball 3! A double kill myself!
On the knees, do it so good I've been cutting my feet. Best thing about it is all of the
that greed. She don't be stopping, she get what she needs. Stop by my honey, better be cautious. Look at her funny. We're gonna brawl, do it 100. I'm bringing the chalk, and for my next number, I'm getting applause. I can get mine, you can get yours. Baby, gon' smile when I take care of the problem. I'll be just fine. How about y'all? Baby, gon' smile, and to me that is all. There ain't no wall that can be solved with a massage, babe. So what you calling for job, way all day, yeah. Calling her close, know how it goes, keeping it suave. Tingle champagne all night. So generous, can't describe what I feel. Pinching myself, trying to prove that it's real. She's old and pretty, too pretty for thieves. Keeping it private, but saying no cheese. Licking my tummy, she make it stop. Water is muddy, clearing it off. 101 honey, she earn on the clock. And making the yummy, she do it on top. I can get mine, you can get yours. Baby, gonna smile when I take care of the problem. I'll be just fine. How about y'all? Baby, gon' smile and tell me that it's all. There ain't a bowl that can be solved with a massage, babe. So what you calling for job, way all day, yeah. Calling her close, know how it goes, keeping it suave. Tingle champagne all day.
Well, the Mambo find themselves up 1-0. And I don't even want to call it a rocky start. The kills don't go their way, but the gold was always in their favor. And they end up finding that into 4 kills around an FG, into 4 kills around a Phoenix while they had the FG, and it wasn't the other side's Phoenix, it was theirs. And to just a whole onslaught of kills and kills and kills going their way. Then they knock down all the objectives, and that's the last 7 minutes of the game, really. I mean, Nieflheim, what is most impressive, and I think what caught us off guard, was the turning point. I think the FG fight, Mambo kill 4, they get 4 people that have FG. That's not the end of the game. It's the fight 30 seconds later, a minute later, at their left Phoenix for some reason, where the Wargs are really pushed up. That felt like it was like the Mambo, or sorry, the Wargs falling on their own sword.
Yeah, and a very interesting paced game, I think, where it's so hard to evaluate why things are happening and when they're happening, right? Like, you want to talk about, sure, it was a team fight before the first Fire Giant that got Fire Giant, but Hex Mambo just walked up as 5 and said, we're going to win the Fire Giant fight, and they pull it themselves, and the Nieflheim Wargs show up. It's not, hey, we're going to look for a pick first. It's not, hey, our confirmation is just better. It's, hey, we're 25 minutes in, and Hex Mambo is comfortable fighting 25 minutes in, and that's exactly what happens. Immediately afterward, you could sense desperation. I think that's what we said during the cast itself. The Wargs desperate. Okay, we lost a team fight in neutral territory. They've got Fire Giant now. We got to do something on the map. We need to find some sort of win condition. Group up, try and siege right side Phoenix. Obviously not going to work when everybody's still alive. 5-on-5 engagement, and one of the teams has nearly 10,000 gold in the lead. a slight experience advantage, and Fire Giant on 4 members. That is a clean team fight over to Hex Mambo, followed by continuous clean team fights to Hex Mambo, where the Nieflheim Wargs again fall on their own sword. It was this siege here where the Wargs, I believe, chase out towards that red buff, their own red buff, and lose out on every single one of their relics. And then Hex Mambo is able to push their way back in and clean out the game yet again. The Nieflheim Wargs are essentially a brand new team. This is a new 3-man core. So I'm willing to give them a little bit of leeway in that they're trying to figure out their style and how to play against some of these heavy hitters in the European SCC. But those are some pretty clear issues I think that will be ironed out pretty quickly.
And honestly, still got to give them some credit. Ollie stole a Pyromancer with a bouncing bubble
He sure
in
did.
that game. I almost forgot about it until I saw. I was like, 0-4-1. I was like, man, that's not maybe the best look that you could have in that. Also, 20 minutes in was the first kill that we got for the Mambo there. They waited. And then they end with 16. I mean, they took 12 minutes of gameplay and crammed as much action into it as they could from the end to make sure they, I guess, alleviated some of it. 23K there from Echrome. I was talking about it a little bit earlier, and I can go look at it for the year. But one of the biggest and most common bans against that team in the Mambo, outside of the Sobek, which is just almost immediate, has to be banned away from Trickstank. The next one is the Heimdall, and then of course there's apparently Geb, Bacchus. Trickstank's a huge threat on this team is what I learned when you look at what's banned against them the most. But that Heimdall for Echrome, I mean 23K, very quiet, but we saw it and you saw it early on where even if he wasn't getting kills, he was bullying that lane. He was controlling it, and you had mentioned the Ichaival is a choice strictly for someone who wants to box.
And he wanted to box, and when he did, he won out on those boxing matches. And when he won out on the boxing matches, he went to lanes, or he went to the jungle and he farmed up there. He went to the neutral camps and he farmed up there. And we did not see any jungle presence from the Wargs towards the duo lane. It was continuous pressure onto Deathwalker in the solo, which allows Echrome to establish that kind of lead, which is, I think, a trapping that a lot of junglers fall into, which is, hey, if I gank dual lane and I don't get anything for it, there's not a whole lot of farm that I'm allowed to take here, because ADCs are selfish and they want all the farm for themselves. If you're a jungler and you touch a purple buff, you're going to get a paragraph sent at you in any game ever by your ADC. So if you mess up your gank in duo, you lose out a lot of farm. So a lot of these junglers at the mid-level play in the SCC and the SOC love to gank out solo lane, and occasionally will try and make plays in mid, because if you mess up in solo, you can at least take a Naga. You can at least go to your back camps. That's where your speed buff is. Nobody's going to get mad at you if you're a jungler and you're dropping your own speed. So it's a lower risk play, but it's also a lower reward play if you gank out that solo, which is why we see it so often. You know, maybe go over to duo lane. If your ADC is getting as bullied as we saw in the last match, go alleviate some of that pressure. Don't let Echrome take everything on the map, and you'll have a better time in some of these mid to late game team fights.
We'll see how it ends up working out for them. Bans this time around: Terra, Kumba, same bans from last time for the Wargs, but they add a Hunbats to the list. And then on the other side, Nemesis, Mercury, Jingwei, the exact same. A little bit of a change up though. I was talking a lot about the Heimdall, and you can see that it's changed the top two. Discordia, Hades there for the Mambo. Heimdall locked in first for the Wargs. 6 times this year, Mifflin. They've locked in Heimdall first pick. 5 times they've won with it when they locked it in first pick. So it's a pretty good first pick for them. And something that we always talk about being a very common and I think really good pickup in Europe, specifically as of late. But it was a lot of play on field. I mean, Heimdall's good at staying alive, and we just saw he's really good at boxing in the right circumstances. But how well is that going to work out? The thing I want to ask you is actually not about the drafts we're getting. It's about the bans we're getting. Nemesis, Mercury, Jingwei.
I'm fine
Those
with
are all of those feel very right now. The Hunbats after last game's performance, I get it. But how do you feel about tanks still being prevalent bans right now in a meta where people are crying about what the scenario is for tanks every game?
Yeah, not even evaluating that, right? Like, not even talking about, tanks, sure, a little bit weaker now. Hunters in the meta, they can slam you with kin size. Okay, sure. But, if you were to ban tanks, are Terra and Kumbhakarna, the high priority tanks that you want to get rid of? I'm not exactly convinced of that 100%. I'm not sure that those are the impact players that are going to really make it difficult to play any singular portion of the game. I think it makes sense in the regard that Terra and Kumbhakarna are both late game slanted guardians, and these team fights are only really starting in the late game, so you don't want to have to deal with that. But there are just so many priority picks available to be banned out that I think you likely want to look at those first. But with even all that said, let's take a peek at the compositions now.
Yeah.
I know we were ignoring them, but
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and
Now
look
we can
at them
dive
for a
into
second.
it.
You banned out Terra, you banned out Kumba. If I'm ever hearing that, I'm thinking, wow, whatever Hex Mambo got in their first 3 picks are probably some pretty high priority stuff, some really contested picks because of all these weird bans in the first phase. Disco, Hades, Fafnir. They can get those picks no matter what.
Yeah.
I don't care what you're banning. So
And they did last game too.
yeah, so I suppose it's just fine.
Yeah, interesting, I guess, approach here for the Wargs. Another thing that is interesting here, we talk about boxing, and specifically the Heimdall last game, the Ikeval. You used to box, so you know,
I
you're
did.
used to it. Ho Yi, the boxer. He's the guy to do it. He has the mark of the Golden Crow. He loves taking 1v1s. It feels like this Heimdall, luckily for him, is safe, but has something to worry about in this lane because, you know, you get E-Chrome on a pick that maybe isn't as signature as what we get to see when it's the Heimdall, but something that maybe does what he was just doing in that game better.
And he's got a decent matchup into Heimdall himself. Gallarhorn, pretty easy to cancel out with the stun from Ricochet. You're able to force out those dashes with relative ease. It takes a little while for Spudio to channel the Bifrost, so a knock-up from Ho Yi with that leap might be able to slow down some of these teleports as well. Not a poor matchup by any regard. And taking a peek now at the builds, seems like Spudio and E-Chrome both are going for a boxing style. Death Toll immediately into either Atalanta's or Ikeval, depending on how they decide to go. Likely Ikeval, considering the matchups here. I would probably give some favor over towards E-Chrome in the matchup, unless we see some jungle presence. Spudio is much more survivable. There's no 2 ways to cut it. That is the only way to describe that survivability direct head-to-head, which means Johnny rotates over, he's going to have a much harder time dealing with Spudio. Sarpei rotates over, he's going to have a pretty easy time chasing out E-Chrome, who's really only got space control from the ultimate and a standard leap, whereas Spudio's got CC immunity plus a essentially global leap with the Bifrost, knock-up immunity as well as a knock-away peel. Heimdall's hard to kill. That's the entirety of the analysis.
That's the one reason. I mean, we used to talk about like Heimdall Jingwei matchups, and most of the time it doesn't matter what kind of action. Like, it was the most solo lane matchup you could get in the duo lane, where it doesn't matter what happens over there. They're going to be safe enough. Neither of them are going to die for the most part. Here, I'm interested to see how this shakes out. I also think it's worth talking about. I was looking at it, and this one, again, might be player perspective, might just be something that has to be delayed. Johnny tries to get aggressive on the dodge. Lucky to get out with their life here. And that's something that's worth talking about. First off, Baba Yaga's, you know, the shape of those abilities almost letting you hit Johnny there. Something that you don't get too used to. Not the most seen competitive mage. Maybe one of my favorites to watch just because of how hectic it can be. But the thing that interests me is Hex Mambo, I think and I have to double check for every European team, but maybe the least amount of order side games played. Like, they really like to be second pick, and they really like playing this side of the map, and most of the time it's successful for them.
Yeah, that is curious. Second pick is pretty valuable. There are some metas where individual gods are so strong that you really want to have first pick just to have the potential of taking that for yourself. But I think in 9-5 and in Smite and Season 9 in general, there's like a series of picks that are powerful. So second pick might just be at least perceived as more valuable by Hex Mambo. But you brought up the Baba Yaga, and I want to go into it a little bit. As far as mentality around this pick goes, it is the only ability in the game that has got variable range, is Baba Yaga's first ability. Not only is it, okay, sometimes it's a circle, sometimes it's an L, sometimes it's a Y, but sometimes it just hits me from further away than it would other times. So it makes it so hard to figure out what your spacing is allowed to be. It makes it so hard to figure out where you're allowed to stand in this lane. It keeps the opposition guessing. And in doing so, sometimes Baba Yaga just gets some cheeky kills that she wouldn't otherwise. The Y goes further than just about any other one of her abilities. And, well, that means that sometimes she's going to snipe you.
And my favorite part about it, and this might just be me, but it with the L and the Y, if you hit them, like if you get the angles right, you're not looking at them when you throw it out there. Like you're aiming almost explicitly slightly to the left or slightly to the right to make sure that it ends up connecting them. And like you said, though, it's very difficult. You know, that's depending on the shape of L you get and or if you get a Y. What, 40 degrees or something like that, 45 degrees that you just can't stand in front of this Baba Yaga, plus the rectangle in front of her from the circle. Like, there's so much that is maybe denied just in possibility, or else you die.
It's like the basketball eye fake. Just like keep your eyes on the hoop, right? Like act like you're going to shoot for that. Baba Yaga's never looking at you. You never know when she's trying to initiate. So one of her strengths, but a weakness of Baba Yaga is the pace of her game.
Yeah.
Generally, it's going to be a little bit more mid to late game slanted. She's not exactly one of the strongest early game picks.
Yeah.
Level 2, she's pretty powerful, but level like 3 through 9 probably gets a little bit outscaled, which means...
Do I have good news for you?
Oh, let's go.
We were 20 minutes in before Mambo even got a kill last game. This is the best meta maybe for a Baba Yaga, exclusively in Europe.
True. but then if that's the case, if you're already playing a mid to late game slanted god, why not stack? You know, like why not build like a Warlocks or like a Book of Thoth or both? You could still go towards it, especially knowing that the pace probably won't pick up and looking at the drafts. Hex Mambo haven't got that much better of an objective composition. Johnny on the Daji means that you can likely look towards Pyromancers a little bit sooner just because her auto attacks are so valuable, but not so much so that I think Sap 7 needs to concern himself. So maybe it's going to be a Rada Tahuti again, could be a Chronos Pendant in that first slot, immediately into a Warlocks, immediately into some stacking, synergize with that Baba Yaga passive, and get some of that power online. Should be the game plan of Sap 7.
No, and it's something that's interesting. Yesterday, we even got to see this skipped starter item for Big Man Tings in the SPL playing the Kukul Khan. Immediately into a Book of Thoth, immediately into a Warlock Staff, immediately into a Soul Reaver. Then the starter item came out to get upgraded to the Pendulum. And so it feels like Baba Yaga, who benefits from having those stacks, maybe could do a build, like you said, very similar. You had already mentioned some of those items immediately. And with the way these games have been going, and specifically the pace of these games, he probably would have finished stacking pretty quickly. That you would have felt like a good power spike. So I'm interested to see where this ends up going. I guess most of the time we see first item, you tier 2 into the Lost Artifact. It ends up being a Charon's coin. We'll see where this goes, though. Trix Tank sent through the realms, a good jump, and then a transformation. You're surrounded by 4, and I'm surprised the second leap gets Trix Tank some distance. But is it enough? Baba Yaga's chasing down. The damage is there. The Y is able to connect, but does not find the kill. So despite a good play from the Wargs, the Mambo's support still gets out of there.
Another situation where Baba Yaga rears her head. She gets unlucky there. Doesn't get the cripple, so Trix Tank walks out. Echrome might not be able to do the same. Sarpe sticks with them, holds onto the stun, realizing the beads would come out, but still takes a little bit too much damage. 9-5 towers hit real hard, and even with some death immunity, probably don't want to stick in there. Even in stripping away just the beads from Echrome, though, will open up the door for Spudio to start looking towards these 1v1s. Through the realms in a 1v1, pretty powerful. But dedicating your dash up against a Ho Yi means you won't have it anymore, and, well, you can just rain the suns down. So not super simple. Maybe we'll see Sarpe rotate back over again.
Yeah, you had mentioned last time that needed to be happening a little more consistently. Granted, that was because of the deficit that was happening over there. It also feels like there's just less around this game. You know what I mean? Like Cucullin versus Hades.
That's evocative.
I don't know if I'm expecting a lot out of there. I think this duo lane might be the main place that action can happen, where fights can break out. And we're seeing it already there through the realms. Echrome's going to come crashing down. Sarpe's already waiting, but a good little leap, gets some distance. There's the Suns. Sarpe has to back away, can't get under the tower, and forces them to feel awkward. But now you've got the ult, you've got the leap, you've got the beads, you've got so much down for Echrome. Sticking around, or at least maybe making a rotation if you're Ollie back into the lane, could give you a lot of power.
Yeah, Sarpe is taking a very passive approach to these ganks. He's trying to bait out everything before he dedicates any of his own kit. But in allowing Echrome to leap after the Through the Realms, allows Trix Tank to kind of set up and get those body blocks ready. Sarpe stunned on his leap in, wasn't able to stick to that engagement. I think had we just seen the stun immediately after Through the Realms, would have got a couple of auto attacks from Spudio, maybe would have dealt a little bit more damage to Echrome, make an easier chase potential for Sarpe. So a slight mistake there, but still applying some damage and stripping away some of that farm is valuable in its own right. Sarpe, though, has split a whole lot in that duo lane and has put Echrome ahead just by Echrome getting some solo farm.
Echrome not just getting solo farm, but the Mambo as a whole, sitting about 600 ahead, which doesn't sound like much, but that's a first blood bounty. that you have just in gold that you've gotten without having to get a first blood. So it feels good there. They just finished completing their obelisk, so they got a trebuchet just waiting to go down the lane. And that makes this one a little more interesting. 20 seconds left on those beads. Spudio has ult, so I think duo lane theoretically could pop off at any given moment. Right now it's going to be Ollie, though, has to put up the Dharmic pillars. There's the apple. Yeah, this has to be a kill with the investment. And Mambo are going to find first blood, push their lead even further. And it looks like that's not the only place they're trying to do so. I see a little bit of bullying going on in right, getting the Totem of Ku. And even the control for e-Chrome right now, again, maybe not massive, maybe not a kill, but it is enough to make things feel just ever so slightly more in favor of the Mambo.
Unfortunate pathing for Ollie there, who steps onto one of Hex Mambo's wards, tries to use the dash to escape, but instead catches an enemy god. And if that's happening, surrounded by 3, you're probably just dying immediately afterward, and that's exactly what happens to Ollie. So you were talking about First Blood Bounty already to Hex Mambo. Now they've actually got First Blood Bounty as well, and it was about 15 to 16 minutes into the game where we saw this gold lead in Game 1. Now Hex Mambo have established it at around the 10-minute mark, which could make it easier for them to look towards those Pyromancers. We'd already talked about how this composition, and Johnny in particular, is going to be a lot more effective up against these neutral objectives, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Hex Mambo try and play for that Pyro as soon as it spawns, try and establish some aggression, poke somebody out, even potentially find a pick, and then look for this neutral objective in the next couple of minutes.
Fire Giant, it's going to be spawning in soon. Don't expect to see that for a little while.
No.
Especially at this rate. Honestly, Gold Fury was an interesting one last game because it feels like the first one, Mambo grouped up and just did it. And so they were able to get a pretty comfortable lead there. And then, of course, we saw the Pyromancer steal not too long, either after or slightly before. Either way, ended up being a play that the Wargs, unfortunately, never financially recovered from. We all know that feeling to an extent. And here, I feel like we're almost set up. It feels like we're on the same trajectory, which is really weird to try and deal with because, you know, you see Spudio, I see successful numbers in this pick when they first pick it. But like you said, it's not the same team anymore. Kha'Zix, one of the new additions, is in trouble now in the solo lane. Up onto the Pal-Ow goes Johnny. The chains are connecting, but not enough damage. And that is going to be a life for Kha'Zix now. Chased down. Sarpei gets Deathwalker, does not have the full lockdown. Oh, already used by Sap. The explosive bolts are good. The healing not good enough. And Sarpei is going to be able to get the kill and shut down and take away Deathwalker's life.
Just unfortunate miscalculation from Johnny there. Damage not quite enough to chase out Kha'Zix. Transformation from Kha'Zix, giving over that HP shield, is likely what saves his life. Now the Nieflheim Wargs, having tied up the kills, can look for a little bit more. But Trick's tank is Fafnir, and Fafnir has 2 leaps and an Aegis built into his kit, so you don't really want to dedicate anything to him, especially considering Sap 7 had already used his ultimate. So Trick's allowed to apply some damage and then immediately disengage himself. We've seen a whole lot more of this in Game 2 than we did in Game 1. Sarpei, continued presence in the duo lane, just applying some poke. Unfortunately for Sarpei, e-Chrome was on the way out regardless. He was channeling a back, so even in taking a little bit of damage here, probably doesn't feel too bad about it. Could likely just clear this purple, clear this wave, and then continue his back. Hex Mambo still nursing the same lead as well. It's almost just a disgusting sense of deja vu, isn't it? Where the Nieflheim Wargs are getting these small plays on the map where they're able to find something here or there, but every time I look at the top of the screen, it's always Hex Mambo.
And it's always a daunting task. One of the things that this team has done incredibly well over the years has been exactly this, right? If they're in the SCC, you talk about these guys, you know, as an SCC team because that's where they've been for so long. But it's a bunch of SPL players, save for e-Chrome. I mean, every single one of these guys has participated at the highest level consistently. And we've always talked about that. One of the biggest differences that you'll see whenever we do SPL X SCC events is the farm game for SPL teams. Even the Valkyries were mentioning it earlier this year when they were like, yeah, so like we made it to the SPL. We were feeling happy because we knew we were strong enough to do so. We did not know what it was like to consistently play these dudes. Like, scrims against them are different, everything about it. And that's the level that Hex Mambo bring. Maybe not to the full extent of a current SPL team, but they've got that farm unlocked, and it feels not insurmountable, but frustrating, I have to imagine, if you're the Wargs when you're doing everything you think is right, and you look up, and like you said, you're still down by about 1,000. Yeah, it's not a ton of gold, but it's a little upsetting every time if it's consistently going to be that way, especially with how things shook out last time. A Gold Fury was a very easy pickup for Hex Mambo. Now, though, there might be some kills onto Echrome, one of the culprits of the gold lead. Diving the tower, there's Destruction. Stun is good, but is it going to be good enough? No, the full heal for Sarpei. The tower shot's doing a lot of damage, though. Tricksnake is here. There's the hammer. Johnny just has to close the gap, and the kill comes out 1 for 1, but they're looking for a little bit more. Tricksnake with the transformation tries to find a way forward. Johnny leading them there as well. Powwow available. There's the dash forward, and there's the stun, the slow, the damage, but not enough to find Spudio. Dodging the chains like it's nothing. Spudio, though, finally pulled in, killed off, and Johnny finds himself a second kill. Unfortunately, costs him his life, and it's 2 for 2.
And now the Nieflheim Wargs find themselves in the same position Hex Mambo are in, where they could look for some chase. Trickstank will de-transform. But Sap7 has got enough, and he realizes the mid-wave's coming, so he's got to get back towards that. Zeros of like mind. So both these teams resetting themselves back to neutral. But this is the Nieflheim Wargs getting aggressive on the map, and let's evaluate how that looks different. It was immediately a dive from this Kali. Sarpei going into the tower, forcing out every relic from Echrome, and forcing a rotation, which is the most important part of it, from the entirety of Hex Mambo. Because of how valuable that trade was for the Nieflheim Wargs, Mambo can't do what they did in Game 1, which was, oh, you got to pick, we'll just farm on the map. It's, oh, you got to pick? That's like one of our guys. Like, that's one of our win conditions. We need to get over there and make you pay for it. So a massive rotation from Hex Mambo as well to try and match that presence. So at the end of the day, sure, it was a net wash because kills went even, but the Nieflheim Wargs generated enough threat to control Hex Mambo for maybe the first time this set, which is why the gold has stagnated instead of continually gone in favor of Hex Mambo. The Wargs are slowly trying to figure out their style and figure out how they can approach this meta, how they can approach this matchup to find these small openings. Had they gotten just the 2 kills and traded out 1 and disengaged, the Wargs would be very, very happy with how that fight goes, and even could potentially look towards an objective. So I like this adaptation. I like the strives we're seeing from this team. Brand new, by the way. I got to keep emphasizing it. I know that it's a legacy squad, and there are 2 members that are the same, but 3 being different is so important, and it's crazy that this essentially new squad has been able to line up against Hex Mambo as well as they have.
Yeah, a lot of it, I have to give credit, like Sap, Kha'Zix, new players to the team, but not to the league and not to competitive play. Sap7 and Kha'Zix have been pretty remarkable, I would argue. I mean, Sap, I always I don't know if it counts as a meme, but like one of the most memorable things, I remember their first set when they played, no clue, never heard the name before, just going to see what happens. They play Vulcan Mifflin. And normally that's not a way to make a lasting impact. You play
Unless
Vulcan, but Sap had a great game on that Vulcan. I remember it because of that. So it's those moments where you know the pop-off potential exists. And you can see it here in the Baba Yaga. The explosive bolts thrown out towards Zeros. The Aegis putting in work. The apple just wide. Sap gets the kill and is now trying to get away. Chased down by Johnny. The kill does not seem to be there. The damage and retaliation isn't there either. There's going to be the beats. It's going to save you from the chains, but not from the damage. They're getting chased down.
Nearly.
And it's going to be mid for mid. But the dive is on the Wargs. Maybe too deep. Dharmic Pillars thrown up. That's going to be the transformation from Trix. And a peel back from both teams.
Crazy that you were talking about Sap7 going into that fight, because he played that so incredibly well, buying so much time for his team, finding the 1v1 up against Zeros, avoiding the golden apple, juking perfectly inside of the cripple field so that Johnny couldn't finish off that kill sooner. Aegis is out, the enhanced auto attack beats the slow as well as the ultimate, the powwow from Johnny. That's about as much as you could hope for from Sap7, and he nearly turns the fight yet again towards the tail end. An auto attack from Johnny finally finds its way home, and Sap7 gets shut down halfway through his first abilities animation. Had he tossed that out, could have been some dive potential.
Well, right now there's trying to beat dive potential. Deathwalker under the tier 1 tower, just trying to stay alive. Sarpei and Kha'Zix chasing them down. There's going to be a dash back. The CC is good. The CC seems to be better on the other side. There's the Pillar of Agony, the Prots putting in work. The tower putting
Still
in
alive.
numbers as well. Kha'Zix goes
No
down,
way.
and he's looking to turn it around. One more auto. No, he's going to be just shy. Deathwalker gets the 1-for-1, though. Sarpei barely able to get out for now. But is it the distance? Johnny's here. You can't go for the back under the tower. You got to play it safe. There's the blink for blink, the dash, and the kill. They dive deep. and they pay for it.
Man, these mage players are just playing so well right now. Deathwalker essentially reprising what Sap 7 did, but a little bit better. Sets up for yet another kill. Trixtank needs one auto attack to finish this off, or maybe a leap. Ollie at the back of his tower, still not safe.
Oh no!
Phenomenal bounce from Echrome. Catches him out.
Oh.
Keep your eyes on Sap 7 though. He's here. He might need to be. This tower is going to go down pretty quick with the help of a trebuchet.
I was so certain it was going to be the most lackluster. Trixtank threw a hammer, got a kill. Okay, cool. Tank on tank violence, whatever. What a bounce from Echrome. They get the tower as well. The trebuchet is hanging out. And they get to back away. Normally, this is where I would maybe advocate for a gold Fury, but it feels a little awkward to try and pull it. You're on the retreat. You just got some gold. Honestly, your team's doing really well. 5-1-0 for Johnny. And while he might be pretty much all of the kills on your team, that is still, I think, a team-wide performance. 5 assists there for Trixtank. 7 total kills. 4,000 gold Nieflheim. No Gold Fury. No Pyro. No Fire Giant.
No
just
problem.
through kills. Just through normal farm. They are coasting into the lead.
That's the only way to describe it. Mo objectives, mo problems, I suppose. So Hex Mambo not going to leave it up to Risk, and why would they? They've already established so much of a lead on their own. We're starting to get to that 20-minute mark, which was generally when we started to see these dances around Fire Giant begin. Also, when these grayscale timers, start to get a little bit long as well, upwards of 40 seconds if anybody dies in the ward. Same for the Hex Mambo. So every single pick starts to mean a little bit more going forward. Every single pick could lean into an objective from this point forward. So keep your eyes on these team fights. The Wargs are behind, but they've done a good job cutting that lead slightly. Was 4,000, now closer to 3. One objective would bring this game right back to dead even. Largest experience gaps we're seeing are about 3 levels, but Johnny's not going any further than where he's at right now, having hit level 20, so Sarpei is going to be catching up pretty quickly. Soul laners equal, mid laners actually a lead over to Sap 7, supports equal, and 1 level for Echrome. This game's a lot closer than it might appear if you were just looking at the top of the screen. One objective could just open the doors of these games. If Hex Mambo takes gold, takes Pyro, takes Fire, that's pretty clearly a significant advantage. If the Nieflheim Wargs do the same, we're at a dead even state or even a lead state for the Order side. 21 minutes in, this game may have just started.
We got to think about it. The Wargs, a lead state. It's been, what, 50 minutes of gameplay so far, 54? That hasn't happened just yet for them. Gold Fury pulled here. There's going to be Deathwalker going forward. Pillar of Agony. Get some damage out there, pull some people in, but Zeros is taking a lot of damage. Sap gets to the backline, the explosive bolt, chase him down and get the kill. Now the powwow comes through for Johnny, and it's enough to get the pulls, but are they going to win the fight? The damage, the pacing, the Kazakhs leading the way for the Wargs, and they're finding the kills. 1, 2, maybe finding 3 here if Echrome doesn't get that leap, and it's going to be enough distance closers on the side of the Wargs. Nieflheim, it is an inverse of last game, the first full team fight, and it's 4 kills, but this time it's the Wargs that pick them up.
Sarpei goes absolutely massive in that fight. Gold Fury went down to the Wargs, by the way. Odysseus Bow proc steals it. Sarpei works his way into the back line of the team fight, gets lucky with an item, and takes away the objective and a couple of lives in that same breath. The Nieflheim Wargs from the brink are able to bring this game right back to dead even, and even potentially can look for more. 20 seconds left on Echrome's respawn, 30 for Deathwalker. Fire Giant available, and 5 members of the Nieflheim Wargs healthy and present. Johnny's here for the defense, but it ain't gonna be easy.
Yeah, let's see how this works out for them. Although we've been seeing a lot of objective steals, mainly from the Wargs. It was a Pyromancer, a Gold Fury now. Fire Giant, Johnny's gonna go in. Johnny's looking for damage. Johnny's just melted. I don't know where he wanted to go with that one. But it is an easy kill for the Wargs and an easier Fire Giant. They'll pick up this Pyro. And for the first time all set, the Wargs have a lead.
Johnny wanted to blink in, auto attack, and go into powwow. That's all he wanted. Johnny blinked in, he auto attacked, and he got knocked up twice and died. And that's all he got. Unfortunate 40 seconds in the grayscale while the Nieflheim Wargs, 5 stacked with Fire Giant, start their siege up in earnest. They'd just backed previously, so a good deal of gold spent means they can keep up this siege. 30 seconds now on Johnny. Will the Wargs approach the Phoenix? No. Instead, let's go for the easier plays, the more guaranteed plays. There are plenty of towers up on the map, which are plenty of gold caches to collect. Tier 1 and 2 on right fall, Tier 1 in mid will follow suit. And Hex Mambo are not putting up a real hard defense here. Just 3 members showing up, poking. No, that Tier 2 is going down, and I think the same could be said of the left side. Why wait? Just go ahead, push there as well.
Yeah, it looks like Kha'Zix is going to back. Has the
got
teleport
TP.
available, yeah, so it's probably going to be joining the fight relatively soon.
No, he stayed.
We'll see. No, yeah, you're right. It's a very chill pace, falling back. Respawns come through from Johnny. Everybody's back on Hex Mambo. And part of me wonders, Nieflheim, if there's a little bit of PTSD around that right side Phoenix. Right? Understandable to not push into it, but I'd be worried about it if I were the Wargs. You've now got about a 5,000 gold lead, a 10,000 total swing, by the way, in their favor. That is massive from where it was to where it is. But the Wargs, with 2 towers still standing on left, Fire Giant still going for about 2 minutes on the power play. Now they have to worry about a full force Mambo.
And let's take a look back at how it all starts, right? It's that Gold Fury fight where Hex Mambo, 20-some-odd minutes in the game, it had worked for them last game around the Fire Giant, say, all right, we got to the point where our team fight's pretty good. Let's just go ahead and pull an objective from an even state and win out on the fight. That's the double-edged sword of this style of play. That's the double-edged sword of waiting this long to get proactive on the map, to go for these haymakers around these objectives is, if you miss, if you flub it just one time, you're going to see swings like that. Not often is it going to be a 5-for-0 trade plus objective steal, but an objective steal or even just the fight going the way of the Wargs would have net them the Fire Giant regardless of where the Gold Fury goes to either of these teams. Nieflheim Wargs take away 1 from the brink, and now Hex Mambo are on the brink themselves.
Yeah, a minute and a half on the power play. Phoenix on left side already being sieged. And there's the ult from both Deathwalker and from Sap. Deathwalker pulls in a little bit, gets a lot of damage onto Ollie. The Suns that get dropped beside him help out, but not enough to find the kill. Kha'Zix is low, but it doesn't look like they're going to be able to close that one out. The Phoenix needs only 1 more auto, but no one's going to be able to find it. The Wargs repelled at the base. Sap, though, maybe stepping too far forward, has the Cauldron, maybe feels safe in that disengage. He's going to move back. Healing not as strong for the Wargs. They're still alive, and they've got the HP 5 bonus from the FG.
Hex Mambo can't allow the Wargs into the Phoenix line. You can see it where they've set up their defense ahead of the Bird. 1 auto attack, a stray from the Nieflheim Wargs would take down this objective.
Trying to get aggressive, trying to figure out where they want to go. It's going to be a jungle matchup here up onto the powwow for Johnny. All you have to do is find the damage, but you have to play this carefully. Sarpei jumps forward. The damage isn't there from either. There's going to be the destruction. Now the dash away, but not enough. Johnny goes down. Trix Tank killed off. And now the Wargs can move forward in the 5v3. They get the left side Phoenix. The Fire Giant, it only has 12 seconds left. They've got minions in mid. They're going to take down the Bird.
Bird should fall. 2 dead for 30 seconds. The Nieflheim Wargs still 5 strong. Only a couple of seconds left on the Fire Giant buff. Would be a difficult end. Similarly difficult to take down this right side Phoenix without a minion wave and without Fire Giant buff. If Zeros falls, though, that could be game.
Well, Zeros is the target. There's a good apple, and it spreads. Sarpei hates his teammates, as we're learning right now, and ends up getting some of that. Sap actually goes down because of that, and now it's a resurgence forward. Kha'Zix is going to get CC'd. Relatively tanky, maybe not too worried here, but Sarpei doesn't have destruction. Ollie trying to stay away as well. Zeros going forward. There's the Dharmic Pillars. And that kill, 40 seconds left without it, delaying the backs of the Wargs. This could get good positioning around an FG for the Mambo.
I'm doing the mental math to figure out who's more valuable, Sarpei or Sap7, and I think it is likely Sarpei. If Sarpei walks back towards Hex Mambo, he doesn't spread the golden apple to the entirety of his team.
True.
But he does fall down.
Dies.
So he's instead says, hey, Sap, I'm worth more than you, so
goodbye.
Yes. Sap7, just the coat that you drop into the muddy puddle for when you cross the street, right?
And you know what? And I never understood that because, like, that's usually depicted, it's a dude
like
in
a
a suit. That's
like
going to be a
leather
$300 jacket. Like.
Well, that's what Sap7 is. I mean, he was 5-1.
Yeah, 300 gold jacket. Well, maybe more than 300 gold. Hex Mambo just burn that Fire Giant. They wait for it to respawn, and without a contest, take that
Sarpay.
one. But now the fight is going to be there. Sarpay deep and immediately onto Echrome, but is it too far? Has to leap away. Destruction is available one more time, and Sarpay is playing this one safe. There's the apple. Damage is good. Echrome goes down, and the Mambo are now missing their carry. Deathwalker surrounded by 5, and you can't get out of that one through the realms. And whether they even want the kill doesn't matter.
They should want
They
it.
know they're going to be able to deal with him. Yeah, Deathwalker goes down. Kha'Zix, meanwhile, zoning 0. Saying you didn't have to zone him far. Sarpay shows up. The kills come through. They pick up 1 for their troubles. But with the minions already in there, the Titan already low, Sarpay with a double, and Jess Tricks Tank, the Wargs are going to tie this set up.
We called it at the offset of this set that this would likely go 3 with how closely matched these teams were, and that was before we knew about these roster swaps, man. That is crazy that this new team essentially is able to line up against Hex Mambo and push them all the way to the edge. I can't wait to see how this one goes on. We saw the adaptations now from the Wargs. Hex Mambo essentially go to the exact same style of draft as we saw in game 1. Now it's Mambo's turn to show what they've got left.
Yeah, I mean, you have a 5,000 gold lead for a long portion of that game. It all ends one team fight, one gold fury. I mean, a huge swivel there for the Wargs to get them back in this game. We're going to break that one down, move into game number 3, though, right after this.
You think you know me? Say I'm as cold-hearted as they come. You think I'm slowly cutting my ties with you, that I'm done. Here's what you don't know. Feelings, they grow slow. I've just been caring for mine. Now I can feel it. Now I believe it. Baby, tonight is the night. I'm
Well, it's 1-1 here in Europe in the SCC on a Saturday. And I'm excited to see what these teams have to offer. Both times it has been an interesting, well, very similar story for about 10, 15 minutes at
20.
least. 20 minutes of Hex Mambo aren't fighting a lot, farming better. That's just the blanket statement. And guess what? I have a prediction for game number 3. Hex Mambo aren't going to fight a lot. They're going to farm better. But the problem this time around for Nieflheim goes, in game 1, it's a Fire Giant fight. They get 4 kills and the objective. Game 2, it's a Gold Fury fight. They lose 4 kills and the objectives, and the Wargs are able to pick up a lot off of that. They can then get a Fire Giant, then get a bunch of towers. 10k gold swing that goes into their favor. It is impressive to see what they were able to do off of just one big fight.
Which is why I'm always so continually surprised to see this slower paced style of Smite. I've been a huge proponent of get active early and stay active. Because when you allow the game to go to 20 minutes in essentially a stalemate state, sure, 20 minutes in, it was what, 3,000 gold in the lead for Hex Mambo, if? That's not massive. We saw what one flubbed team fight in a late game does, whereas if you try and get aggressive a little bit earlier, maybe you're getting some Gold Furies early on, maybe you're losing out on a fight here or there, but it's not as if it's a game-breaking play, right? It's not as if one small interaction can lose you a match. This time around, it's one small interaction, massive interaction at the 20-minute mark, lost you the game. Hex Mambo were never quite back in it. They weren't quite able to get their feet back under them after that 5-man wipe on the Gold Fury, after the objective is taken away. Nieflheim Wargs were 4 or so some odd thousand gold behind. They swing it back into their favor, get the Fire Giant, get the Gold Fury, Pyromancer, 6 towers, and a Phoenix off of 1 Fire Giant power play. Got to think you can prevent some of that just by playing the game a little bit earlier, right? Like try and create some scenarios where it's not one interaction point, one POI is the dictator.
Something that has always been the discussion, specifically in Europe. There's a lot of like, you know, in North America, it's like, oh my God, guys, calm down. It's 16 kills. It's been 7 minutes of gameplay. Press the pause button. But here, it very much is by the time you get to any of these massive team fights, you've got 20-second, 30-second death timers at minimum. You know, you're looking at 40 seconds, 50 seconds by the time that you respawn. And so for a lot of these fights, you know, it's very important. You had mentioned the Baba Yaga, and we got to see it there. In this pace, it was perfect. I mean, you get the Charon's coin early on, you got the Warlock staff, you got good damage. I will have to give a lot of credit. Sap played the Baba Yaga
very well.
Insane. And you got to see some of those plays as well from the other side. But I think the consistency that we saw out of the mid laner there on the Wargs that game was just insane. So now we'll have to see whether they can do it in game number 3. Hex Mambo, contrary to what I said at the beginning of last game, this time will be in the first pick position. So that is going to be something that changes up ever so slightly. And honestly, if I'm looking at it, Heimdall was their first pick in game number 1, Nieflheim. Wargs first picked it in the game last time around with Hex Mambo over there. I feel like a Heimdall is going to be up on that part of the screen.
Maybe.
Unless it's down in that part of the screen.
I think it might be down in that part of the screen. Oh, I got to point that way. I'm different from you. But Heimdall has been pretty proactive for both of these teams. Being able to play that slower pace style makes it very hard for junglers to want to rotate over towards the duo lane. Really adds up to just allowing your hunter to free farm for the most part, which is why we're starting to see Jingwei banned out as well. If Heimdall isn't banned, though, I wonder where the Wargs could go. Maybe you want to take Deathwalker off of Hades. He's played it for the last 2 games. Has had great performances on it both times. Could be that. Instead, it's the Kumbhakarna, which I just gotta assume has been just dominating scrims.
Aid me!
Locked in, it's the Heimdall. I was thinking, and this kind of popped into my head, that Mercury, it's been banned by the Mambo all game. Johnny's a really good hyper carry, right? So hear me out. What if you had banned Heimdall so that Wargs couldn't get it, and then just first pick Mercury? But first pick Mercury feels like it might open you up to
I think it's just good.
a little. Oh yeah, just good.
I think
Maybe-
Mercury is
maybe it
just
could've
really
worked.
good. He's got global presence, phenomenal scaling in a composition and in a meta/scene where the game is going to go late regardless. He's really good around objective play. He slams towers. His early game ganks are legitimately very strong just because he's so hard to lock down on the map. He's one of the few junglers that can just path through a lane and still make contact with an enemy god. Yeah, Mercury's been getting banned out pretty consistently because I think you can just plug and play him into the majority of your compositions, especially for Hex Mambo, who have been playing this Fafnir religiously. Imagine a Mercury with Coerce. be pretty nice.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, the guy that 2 to 3 shots you can now 1 to 2 shot you in the right
Faster.
circumstances. Yeah, he's going to be able to do it even better. But we'll see what they're going to contend with. No jungler locked in for the Mambo just yet. The Wargs, on the other hand, Baba Yaga, Kali, and the Ganesh. They get a 3-piece core of what helped them last time. Cucullin and the Heimdall were their final 2. One of those is already gone. We'll see if the Cucullin ends up either getting banned or picked up again as they kind of determine how they want to deal with, well, actually for the first time I can't say a Hades in the solo lane. We don't know what Deathwalker's going for just yet.
Might just be the Hades because it's still available.
And,
It's Deathwalker.
Yeah,
so
who's going to ban?
I mean, I might. He's been having some really good performances,
Yeah, at
right?
this
Like
point.
he's been establishing dominance in lane. He's been continually invading that blue buff with zero regard for his opposition. Hades has been serving him well. Osiris might as well just be the physical Hades in that he's got a whole lot of protections built into his kit, mitigations thanks to his passive, mitigations thanks to tether, as well as the ability to walk through walls and utilize that Bumba's Hammer style of play to its fullest extent. So physical Hades locked in for Hex Mambo, and it wasn't a forced pick. It could have just been normal Hades.
Yeah, if you had wanted it to be. Osiris, though, is what's going to be locked in. Bakasura is the lock in
Hyper
there.
farmer.
Now a King Arthur on the other side. Well, we can talk about him. He's been seeing a lot of SBL play. Bakasura, I feel like, has been seeing a lot of bans, really, as of late. There's a couple of teams that have been playing him. I think of Twig, who has liked to play him, but a couple of teams in Masters in the SBL who were scooping him up. And like you said, like really good at farming things up. Does it really well, as it turns out, when you can just consume with your stomach. But also, really hard hitter late game because of the true damage.
Yeah, the true damage plus additional power you get just from leveling up Butcher Blades adds power to you at all times, by the way. It's not a stim that he gets true damage plus power. It's just always having power,
Yeah.
as long as he's put some points into that ability. But the main strength of Bakasura is his jungle clear. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, it's got to be Devour, right? Like, that's why his jungle clear is so strong. It's actually the passive. He gets additional movement speed and attack speed when he kills minions, stacks up to 3 times. If you are maneuvering the jungle, as you will be with Bakasura, with Golden Blade, by the way, which is an additional 10% movement speed, you're also benefiting from the passive. You're also benefiting from getting additional power, so even though Golden Blade is a relatively low power item, you're not sacrificing too much in your build early on. Bakasura really just fits this current meta for farming. I expect Johnny to, if we're seeing the same pace as we saw in both games 1 and 2, establish a 2 to 3 level lead by the time we're about 15 minutes into the game, just by nature of being on every single camp on cooldown.
Yeah, is going to be able to clear out a hefty majority of the jungle in the blink of an eye. And then you have to talk about, specifically, like, I feel like Regurgitate as an ult is one that can be oft overlooked, but when you look towards, like, Kha'Zix, you know, you look at Sarpei, I look at the Baba Yaga, I look at Spuddy, like, every person on the Wargs, if they get caught in that cripple field, that's not going to be beneficial for them. It's going to be, you know, beads being popped, it's going to need to be CC immune, or you're going to have a Bakasura that can maybe make a different sap. Whew, almost taken out there. Johnny trying to make that difference earlier on. Sap is going to be able to heal things up, and no kill will come out of it just yet. That is an impressive performance, though. I mean, Sap has been playing this pretty pristinely. That was almost a little dirty from Johnny.
You know, there are some pretty good relics you can pick up to mitigate Bakasura's ultimate in the late game. I know you were talking about Regurgitate. You don't necessarily have to use beads. It doesn't necessarily need to be an Aegis. Buy like an Entangling Wings. The CC immunity from Bakasura's ultimate, I believe, is about 1.52 seconds long. That's not an incredibly long duration. Drop Entangling Wings immediately afterward. You're slow immuning the Regurgitate. You're rooting him in place so he can't stick to you. And all of a sudden, you're faster as well. So you could just walk on out of there. So I will be keeping my eyes on the Nieflheim Wargs relic selections and whether or not they decide to move in towards that direction. As of now, it's a shell pickup from Ollie. So won't really have the greatest matchups into Hex Mambo. Once you get the Fortifying Shell, it's similar in that you're getting additional movement speed, which should help you get away from this Bakasura, but not to the same extent.
Well, Johnny, right now, mid-camps are the target. I'm surprised to see as much fighting as we have already. I mean, 2 minutes in, and there's already been at least 2 fights. A little bit of boxing over there in the dual lane. Sarpei maybe getting aggressive around the blue buff. That is going to immediately start it up. Kha'Zix over here, and they're... Wow, they're going to clear that like it's nothing. So there's a little pickup, a little bit of invade, and surprise, I want to say, from the Wargs, I should say, that they're the ones kind of dictating the pace right now, except for that fight in mid.
Yeah, I mean, when you're playing around Soul Lane, King Arthur is probably just going to dominate early on, especially with some of the itemization changes. Could be Bluestone, like, into Sovereignty, into Glad Shield, and really just have a decent matchup up against Deathwalker, who has gone for a more eclectic build. This is not what you'd expect to see from an Osiris. We've seen a whole lot of the Golden Blade start for early clear. Looks like it might be a Soul Eater pickup, which means his second ability is going to be pretty decent sustain. It is Soul Eater on Osiris. Not the greatest stat stick for this god. Generally, you want some like attack speed or something along those lines, but if you're worried about how well you're able to line up against the continual onslaught that is a King Arthur, I suppose Soul Eater will keep you topped off.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch, I think, how this, not only the rest of this build goes. Skipping a starter item, going into a Soul Eater, like you said, not something we're used to seeing on an Osiris. But also how well it goes in lane, considering Kha'Zix's control already, just through merits of being a King Arthur, not having the mana sustain that you would otherwise for Deathwalker. It has been a pretty, I want to say, important lane for them over the last couple of games. The Kukulkan was very big and kind of helped control the Hades for the first few minutes. In game number 1, it was just absolute back and forth between the Baron and the Hades, although more often favoring the Hades matchup. And right now it's been favoring a little more towards Kha'Zix. We'll see how well that continues. As every lane we've bounced to, except for dual lane, has been pushed back into their tier 1. Looks like the blue buff invade's going to be on cooldown as well. And so not only is it going to be a consistent source of farm, but this should help get a smaller lead in favor of Kha'Zix.
Yeah, Kha'Zix is going to get the better end of this matchup for the majority of the early game. But with that said, Osiris only gets stronger and stronger as the game goes on. We've seen it time and time again when guys like SOT lock in this pick. It's all about space control and how survivable you are. That is incredibly true. King Arthur is all about that early bully. He's got it for now, but he falls off.
There's going to be damage onto Trickstank. First blood like it's nothing. 3-man rotation. And they catch him out while he's looking at the purple buff. That's going to be a clean kill. And they get it on the Xbalanque and Nieflheim. Look, outside of the Kali, he's maybe the next best person you'd want it to go on.
Yeah, get that passive ready for you early on. Zero CC immune with a golden apple. Only buys him a second. Will fall down. Sarpe, with his death immunity, unneeded, is able to pick up that kill and rotate his way out safely. The Nieflheim Wargs getting active on the map. Hex Mambo, it just seems like they're caught unaware. That's Trickstank early transforming to the dragon. The sound cue given over to Nieflheim Wargs allows them to rotate over towards the purple and finish off that kill. And then Zero's just a little bit too far up in lane, gets caught out by a Kali.
In the past, at this point, I'd say, oh, well, the Wargs are up 2 kills, but they're down in gold. They're actually up in gold this time around. They got to start the game. My prediction early on, Nieflheim, already proven wrong. The Wargs heard me and decided to make sure that that wasn't going to be the case one more time, which is getting out-farmed. An explosive start. I mean, in consideration, it's only 2 kills at 6 minutes, whatever. But compared to what we've been experiencing, this is a Warg. Some switch flipped when they took that Gold Fury. And it feels like right now they are, well, at least dictating a little bit more of the game than Mambo are. That being said, it is still a lot of open for interpretation, right? Bakasura hasn't necessarily got online just yet. We haven't seen a lot of fights from them.
Good
that
Lord.
damage might change right now, though. Ollie is getting chased down. There's going to be the Regurgitate. You've got the autos, but do you have the damage right now? The answer is no. And the backup is there for the Wargs. Trickstank, unfortunate, left by Johnny. He's going to be able to get out of there. Looked like surrounded by 4 was going to be his doom, but everyone gets off scot-free this time around.
They do. Well,
maybe not
lose some
scot-free.
cooldowns.
Yeah.
Lose some cooldowns, maybe some relics. Shell from Ollie gone, as well as the Dharmic Pillars. But I am surprised that Hex Mambo has chosen this pace. It's both teams have been getting aggressive, but I really would have expected Hex Mambo to lean into the style that we saw in games 1 and 2, which was farm up and just outscale once you get to that late game. The Soul Lane matchup's only going to get better for Deathwalker as time goes on. Had Johnny spent the last couple of minutes just farming in the jungle, he likely would have a lead, but we've seen continual attempts to get active on the map. Speaking of, now it's Sarpe getting active. Good luck, though. That's Osiris, and he's got a whole lot of mitigations and a Soul Eater for some reason.
Well, and you know what? It keeps him alive.
It healed him.
In a way, and so now he's able to disengage. This escape. And that's just one less kill that the Wargs have. And slowly that gold lead is getting chipped down. But Hex Mambo aren't able to pull back too much as of just yet. It's not necessarily a large lead either. So it's something that they can be happy about, but maybe not the end of the world. Instead, you have to look at experience. I see a jungle lead for Johnny and an ADC lead for Echrome over here. The Hunters going off against each other. The 9-8 was for both of them. Sarpegus now ticks over to 9. So keeping themselves even a little bit ahead, even if the gold isn't quite reflecting maybe how the experience is going.
Yeah, Hex Mambo doing a good job. Echrome again going for Icavale in that first slot, so will get the better end of the 1v1s up against Spudio, who is elected to pick up Transcendence. He will scale harder, Spudio that is, with this Transcendence build as Sap 7 goes in the ultimate. Maybe think there was more fight there than there actually was. At least able to put some damage into Johnny.
Yeah, and honestly, oh no, they leashed it. I was gonna say, looked like might be able to steal a mid camp away if they kept holding onto it. The explosive bolts lingering afterward. Obelisk powered over here by the Mambo, and it's going to kick off a Trebuchet. Tricksnake is going for a steal, does not find it. Has gone into the transformation. And what I would say right now is, you know, like you said, it's weird the Mambo are picking a fast pace. It feels like the Wargs are choosing it, and the Mambo are just trying to match. But it's led to like an awkward feeling in a lot of these engagements, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm gonna ult. We don't have the damage to follow up, and we're not gonna get a kill. Okay, cool, I'm gonna ult. Yeah, you're alone. Like literally no one's there to fight you, and the timing just seems a little off to me, Mifflin. So it feels like they've enhanced the pace, but are now maybe coming to recognize that that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get as many kills despite the fights.
Yeah, Tricksnake in particular has been using his ultimate pretty often just to fight inside the enemy jungle or try and steal away some of these buffs. That tells me that Hex Mambo are essentially saying, hey, this is going to be a slower game. Tricksnake's just going to use his ultimate whenever he feels like to see if he can maybe find small wins in the jungle. Generally, you're saving Fafnir ultimate to go like slam a Gold Fury or slam a Pyromancer because Coerce is such a powerful tool, but instead, Hex Mambo realizing, hey, objectives don't fall or haven't fallen in this set until around the 20-minute mark, so why hold on to it? Better to have used the cooldown and maybe get something than to just hold on to it for the entire game. So, Hex Mambo trying their best to find these small interactions. I think the Nieflheim Wargs have established that earlier pace because they are realizing their composition probably doesn't line up incredibly well against Hex Mambo, maybe like 6-4 odds, favoring Hex Mambo at like the 25-30-minute mark if we're at an even state. So I like seeing the Wargs get active on the map. I like seeing them try and do something, try and open up the door to look at one of these objectives or even potentially try and invade some of these camps. But yet again, Hex and Mambo have slowed down the pace of this game. The Nieflheim Wargs established a 2-0 lead, but the gold is now starting to slowly eke back in favor of Hex Mambo. That lead has only gone down as the clock has clicked onward. Hex Mambo, this is very reminiscent of Game 1. I think essentially exactly where we were in Game 1. That said, Nieflheim Wargs slightly ahead, whereas Hex Mambo were about dead even at this point, 11 minutes in the first match of this set. But pacing seems to be the exact same.
Yeah, being able to find a couple of kills, the Wargs did that, like you said, in game number 1. Then it took a little while, about 10 more minutes afterward, and we saw a kill. It was over here in duo lane. Atalanta's just now finished for Spudio. Maybe could be a pretty big power spike. It's a good stat stick when it comes down to it and what it can provide you. But it doesn't seem to be maybe the difference maker here. Echrome, you had mentioned it, the Icavale now into the Aussie. Feels very standard for what we've been seeing. It is 2 Charon's coin in mid lane. Or maybe an aggression on the solo lane. Johnny trying to stay alive. There's going to be the regurgitate, eats one of the minions to get a little bit of healing. Has the damage. Does not have the people to try and find that fight. Meanwhile, Spudio, the darkness, not able to help confirm them the kill they would have thought.
Blink for beads trade. Sarpe blinks, Johnny beads. Both junglers dead even in farm, which is surprising, considering one of those junglers is a Bakasura, but Johnny's been trying his hardest to get active on the map. Stone Cutting Sword in that first slot, or second slot rather. I might as well call it first, because every jungler is building Golden Blade regardless by rote. So we'll give him over a little bit of protections, allow him to stick around in these team fights a little bit longer, strip away from your opposition as well. So Johnny's doing a whole lot of damage right now, even against tanks, which might be why we're seeing him try so hard to get active, but Hex Mambo has not quite hit pay dirt just yet. The Nieflheim Wargs, similarly, have stagnated over the last couple of moments. Neither team incredibly comfortable to look towards these objectives. A pick could open the door specifically for Hex Mambo, as long as Trix Tank has got that ultimate available, but the Nieflheim Wargs might need to do a little bit more if they want to consider a Pyro or even a Gold Fury.
Johnny and Sarpei, I thought was going to be the jungle match of the ages. They just toss a couple autos at each other and then back away. Falls apart pretty quickly. Aggression from the Mambo, though. They're hanging out around the blue buff, looking to maybe repay some of the invades from earlier on. Kha'Zix is getting zoned by Trix Tank. Deathwalker looking for Sarpei. They're going to start up the buff. Sarpei is going to leap out of there under the tower. There's going to be the darkness. With the lights turned off, it looking like a collapse. But no, Zap, who's in trouble. Johnny chasing him down. The auto's going to be good, and he's able to find the one. Retreats to his mid laner. There's the apple, just barely misses Kha'Zix. And now it is 1 kill for Hex Mambo. A stun, just shy of maybe making it a second.
30 seconds on Sap 7's respawn could be the potential for Hex Mambo to look towards this Pyromancer. Sarpei still has ultimate, and will have Blink shortly, but Hex Mambo should make short work of the objective itself. If Wargs won't give it up for free, though, they're showing some presence, and just some. It's going to be a steal attempt from Ollie, and that's it, and that is it. Hex Mambo take the objective for themselves, as well as the fight beforehand. Now pushing the lead into their favor, and showing that the pace has maintained. The common thread in all these games so far is as long as the clock is going onward and not much is happening on the map, Hex Mambo are going to start pulling ahead.
But this time around, it hits a little bit more of what you had asked for, right? You get a kill, you're getting involved in these fights a little faster, and then you are getting things. Granted, it was just a Pyromancer. Maybe it's not the biggest deal, but it's something.
It's big for Hex
that
Mambo.
I was going to say, been able to pick up prior to the 20 to 22 minute mark, which is where we've been seeing a lot of these neutral objectives have to wait until. So Gold Fury is still available on the other side of the map. You have to imagine sometime soon the Mambo could easily look over there. If they get maybe a pick and find themselves a way into not the lead, into control on that side of the map. That's the phrase I want to use.
Yeah, but we have seen legitimately zero jungle presence in the duo lane so far this game, and minimal jungle presence in the duo lane the entire set. So likelihood of a Gold Fury going down in the next couple of minutes, I think, is low. We might legitimately be looking at a game where Fire Giant dies first, because we're starting to approach that time, that portion of the match where every single death is going to get upwards of 40 to 50 seconds, meaning that larger objectives are likely. Deathwalker finds himself in an unsavourable situation. Will be able to walk himself out of there, though, and with Soul Eater, with Glad Shield, should be able to resustain pretty quickly in that lane. It's been serving him well. I mean, an eclectic build to be sure, but Soul Eater not one that we normally see on Osiris, but he's just using it to deal with Kha'Zix very, very well, and even in trading out, he's taken a lot more damage than his opposition, but he's got way more healing.
Yeah, being able to keep yourself alive a little bit more. Lights shut out. Sweaty maybe looking for something. Ollie maybe thinking they had a little more. 4 people on the Wargs on the left. And that's just going to be an ult that goes down, not quite resulting in maybe the assault they thought they were ready for. So Wargs, oh, now maybe in trouble. Spuddio's getting sniffed out by Johnny. Yeah, simple dash. And it turns out that's all that was needed there. Trying to charge up the obelisk, though. I think one more offering, it looks like, for Mambo. They'll get themselves another trebuchet. Should be pretty easy. I think I see Deathwalker going for it.
He got it.
That's going to be a nice, easy push for them wherever they end up getting that one in their lane. It's over there on right as well. So maybe a good distraction for getting a Gold Fury.
I don't think so, man.
No.
You can't keep willing these Gold Furies in existence. If Ollie dies, maybe a Gold Fury through the realms connects. He's going to travel through Nieflheim, but Sarpei is here.
Sarpei's here. Stun is good. Axe is not. Dharmic Pillars. Oh, it creates the
TKO.
space needed. Yeah, has to fall back.
Gold
and
pulled.
You just transformed if you're Trix Tank. Pull it. And
You
get
willed
the
it.
damage. And so it's going to happen there. Trebuchet's not even moving. It's just off the TKO. Johnny getting the zone. But Hex Mambo get themselves the Gold Fury. and push themselves up to 3,500 gold.
I'm going to fully credit that Gold Fury to you, Gore.
Yeah.
You willed that into existence every single time. Maybe a Gold Fury here, maybe. And it happens. 1 TKO. Onto Ollie is all it takes. Dharmic Pillar expended. Sarpei
If you ask
can't
hard enough,
re-engage.
eventually they just have to listen, right?
Yeah, it's going to go down. But what can they do now? Maybe a tier 1 tower on the left-hand side as well. Hex Mambo just getting the better end of all of these trades. It's the Nieflheim Wargs who were establishing the pace earlier in this match, who were the proactive element, who were dictating where these fights were happening and what could happen immediately afterward. And they let off the gas. After those first 2 kills, Nieflheim Wargs said, yo, we're in a good spot. We got the gold lead. We don't really need to do anything anymore. Let's just coast on this. And when we get to that late game team fight, we're going to go the Hex Mambo route of just playing the late game team fight from even. The difference is that Hex Mambo farms the map a little bit better. So as the game went on, Hex Mambo closed it up, looked at the first Pyromancer, established a lead for themselves, get Gold Fury, even further extending their lead. And since then, the Nieflheim Wargs said, oh man, maybe we should have done something while we were ahead. Have fallen behind now.
Unfortunate for them, they are now in this position where chased down, locked away. Most of the time they can't take the fights that they want to. Sap getting some decent damage out there, but not really doing too much to dent Trix Tank's health bar. The Baba Yaga was a really important factor, I would say, in game number 1. Or
I'd
sorry,
agree.
game number 2.
I'll echo that.
But so
Plus
far,
1.
relatively quiet this game.
I mean, it hasn't
Not
had,
for lack of trying.
he's thrown out some of those ultimates.
Yeah.
He's gotten active at points, a part of 100% of the kills as well. It's just not a whole lot of kills. 19 minutes in, 3 total in this match, 2 belonging to the Nieflheim Wargs, but unsurprisingly, I suppose, Hex Mambo find themselves with a pretty significant lead. Pyromancer seems mighty appetizing at this portion of the game, especially considering how good the burn potential is from Hex Mambo. On the right-hand side of the map included Deathwalker, an auto-attacker, Johnny, an auto-attacker, and Trix Tank playing Fafnir. Means you could expedite that process pretty well. But continued presence from the Nieflheim Wargs in these team fights, and Sap7 showing how much damage he can do at a moment's notice might be enough to dissuade Hex Mambo as Trix Tank jumps over the wall. Nothing happens to him. No leap. No problem.
Is more than fine. Just existing, and again, neutral camps at this point going the way of Hex Mambo. To the point where I'm talking about the mid camps, Mifflin. That's the
Sap
control
7.
they're able to get. Sap's fine.
Lost his beads.
Lost his beads, though, so that is going to be maybe the opening necessary to find some kills relatively soon. Didn't have to use any ults or invest heavily if they're Mambo. Pyromancer is here, started up, and should be taken down pretty easily, but maybe not without answer. Sarpei, Sap, they spotted out, and that's enough for Mambo to have to drop the objective.
You know, looking at the Nieflheim Wargs, and we are splitting hairs here, I'm not even sure they saw the Pyromancer get pulled. Like, where their eyes
Yeah,
were.
they were looking at Solo.
They were looking at, like, Deathwalker's engaging. Like, we got to go help Kha'Zix. Nobody had looked at the Pyromancer itself. Fought Hex Mambo, realizing, like, that's probably not going to remain true. Decide to drop it.
They're already over here.
Yeah, we might as well not coin toss it. So, dead even yet again. We're rapidly approaching level 20 for the majority of the carries in this game. Echrome already there. Spudio just behind them. Both junglers, level 18 and 19. So farm is getting as far as it's going to get. We're finishing up 5th items, moving into 6th, so we're only 1 item away from the game being a dead even state where gold loses all value yet again. So, the only thing that could separate these two teams is play on field, composition, and map state. And the only way to get an advantage in 2 of the 3 categories is to either start grouping up and taking some towers or looking towards the Fire Giant and forcing a fight, force an interaction. If neither one of these teams wants to get active, the game will not progress. So Hex Mambo decides to get active, pull out the Pyromancer, reset it. Not even looking for the fight afterward. Hex Mambo are just saying, hey, we're going to pull Pyro, and if no one shows up, we're going to get Pyro. If anyone shows up, we're going to leave. That's the difference. Normally in North America and at the SPL level, we'll see, hey, we pulled Pyro because we like our odds in the fight, which seems to be the case now.
Yeah, now getting aggressive, finally moving forward. Johnny, though, takes a little more damage than bargained for. Sarpei has been able to turn things for this team. Last game on Kali. Oh, and it all builds up to nothing. No fight, no kill. A couple of ults thrown out on either side. No Pyromancer just yet either.
Both Relics lost to Johnny just for the blink from Sarpei, so Relic exchange favoring the Nieflheim Wargs. HP favoring Hex Mambo, as is the objective. It will go their way as Echrome dashes in for the 1v1 up against Sap7, and he's winning that.
Oh, yeah, he is. Look at those autos. And look how hard they are hitting. Sap has to back off. Kha'Zix maybe learning the hard way that you also have to play this carefully, King Arthur. It's looking like they're going to get out of here for now. Pyromancer gets scooped up by Mambo in the process. Sap, you got to be a little more careful. That Cauldron can only get you so far. What a great strife! And then the follow-up from Echrome finds what they need. They get the kill, and that opens the door. Deathwalker zoning out to under the tower for the tier 2. Maybe getting a little too deep. That damage, not negligible, but is enough that they still get out of there. 4 alive for the Wargs. Pretty healthy as well. 2 members at least need to back on Mambo. You have to be careful around here. Letting them have too much wiggle room. Fire Giant burns pretty quickly.
It does with this auto attacker composition. They are grouped up. Sarpe dropped to 50%. Ollie, similarly low HP, should not be able to put up much of a defense here, but Hex Mambo are taking a slower pace to it. Fire Giant is pulled, but not burning. Nobody looking at it. And Ollie, with a wishful ultimate, just throws out the Dharmic Pillars at max range, finds 1 tick. Doesn't really get a whole lot of value from it, but Hex Mambo decide to disengage regardless. So even in finding the pick on the Sap7, even in taking down the tier 1 tower, that's all we're going to see from that exchange. And speaking of that pick on a Sap7, again, splitting hairs, but I'm going to talk about the action because we don't get a whole lot of it. I'm pretty sure Sap7 was out of range of Echrome's auto attack. Ollie walked in to block an auto, but was grouped up so closely to Sap7, I believe it was the splash damage. Heimdall's autos all cleave. That finishes off Sap. So small interaction, does cost a life. 25% of the lives that have been taken this entire game. So in the grand scheme of things, in the tapestry that is this set of Hex Mambo versus Nieflheim Wargs, that one micro interaction could amount to something.
Little things like that. Never before would you be more upset if your support play body blocking for you.
Bro, just leave me alone.
Than if that happens, yeah. Oh, upsetting for him. 0-2-2 for the Baba Yaga. Finished off the Warlock staff a while ago. Soul Gem already. And a tier 2 book. We'll see where this one ends up going. Soul Reaver feels like a pretty common pickup for them. And now it's the question. 25 minutes in. Can you finally get the FG done? They're burning it pretty quickly. And Mambo are going to be able to secure that one. The lights get shut off, but they have 5 people with FG, and the Wargs don't want to fight into it.
Nearly 10,000 in the gold for Hex Mambo. This is the epitome of their style. We're not going to team fight until we've got enough of a lead that the team fight is guaranteed, and even then, not going to look for the team fight. We're going to look for the objective. Fire Giant goes down to 5 members now of Hex Mambo, with plenty of towers still standing on the side of the Nieflheim Wargs. The Wargs can at least try and slow down Hex Mambo's siege. They've got what I would consider the closest thing to a non-standard mage while remaining standard. Baba Yaga at times very good at clearing these waves, very good at keeping the minion waves at bay, so should make it a little bit more difficult for Hex Mambo to push into these tier 2s. I think best case scenario for the Nieflheim Wargs is put up a soft defense around the tier 2s and just take away as much time with this Fire Giant power play that Hex Mambo have got. You don't want a hard defense.
Yeah.
You don't love your odds in a tier 2 fight. You'd rather really dig in your heels on Phoenix, but I think that the game is close enough, despite gold being as largely separated as it is, that the Nieflheim Wargs should be able to show some presence around these towers. Again, as the game goes on, these builds are starting to show some parity. We're all approaching 6th item now in the game. You're all approaching level 20 if you haven't already hit it, except for these supports, which Trix Tank hits a pretty significant spike, taking over to level 18, can start to upgrade his starter item if he so chooses, whereas Ollie is resting comfortably at 16. Otherwise, everybody else in the lobby at level 20. Gold's a little bit deceptive. I think the Nieflheim Wargs are not so far down as you might be led to believe, just looking at the top of the screen.
Yeah, something you have to be a little more worried about. Although, and this Nieflheim, I'm going to try to describe. I think the Mambo's playstyle, I would describe as psychological warfare.
A war of attrition.
Yeah, well, they're not fighting you, but they're out farming you. And they're going to drag you to 30 minutes. Whether you've got a lead or not, they're going to farm better than you, and by the time you hit it, they're going to be ahead. And that's where they're at right now. About 12,000 gold thanks to the towers in mid, or tower in mid that fell down. Tier 2 and right. Now getting sieged not just by the Mambo, but by the Trebuchet as well. Should fall down pretty quickly. Now the Phoenix is the target. Even more gold in their pockets. They're going to let that Phoenix go ahead and try itself. The Trebuchet all on its own is going to get destroyed pretty easily. As now the Pyromancer taken away, taken down. We've got a minute and a half left on this FG power play. One tower still standing on left lane. And not much else to do on the map.
I think we're going to be looking at one more Fire Giant before these Phoenixes get approached. Unless Hex Mambo can regroup in about a minute and get towards that tier 2 on left, potentially find a pick and look for a little bit more. 4 stacks are Hex Mambo. The Nieflheim Wargs are scattered all the way across the map. Not an ideal situation. Spudio might need to get out of here.
Yeah, if you can lock down the jungler here, oh, that would have been such a big play. That's the leap forward from Deathwalker. They're looking for the moment, trying to find the carry, and that's going to be the lockdown. Oh, their health is good, but not good enough. Now, with Sarpei jumping into the fray,
God, Osiris
is it going
gross.
to be enough to be able to get anything done? The answer's just straight up no. Too much damage from Deathwalker, and the only reason Sarpei lives is destruction going through. The apple with the bounce onto Sap. Forces them back. Trix tank finds a little bit of damage. Seems like Mambo almost forgot the tier 2 existed here. Trix is taking a little bit of damage in the D-transformation.
Where's
Does not
Sarpei?
seem to be dead. Sarpei's over there in mid trying to contend with Johnny.
Yeah, maybe just go hit the guy who jumped into your base alone. Trix tank able to D-transform, regroup with his team, and now approach the Phoenix, and it's burning quick.
Yeah, the damage seems to be good on the bird. Stops, though, as they turn to kill off Sap. Turn to look at Kha'Zix get the kill onto the solo laner, but it costs him 1, and it looks like it might cost him 2. Sarpei is able to pick up a couple back in their favor, but can you fight 3 more? In the 2v3, it's not enough for Mambo to feel confident. They back away, and with the death timers being as long as they do, you called it right, and we're going to be waiting for the next FG.
Yeah, Fire Giant, but this time map state a little bit different than what I would have expected. That tier 2 tower remains standing for the Nieflheim Wargs, but the mid Phoenix will fall down. The Nieflheim Wargs just get separated in that team fight, thanks due in large part, rather, to Deathwalker just doing whatever he wants on this Osiris. Yeah. Just rotates in, utilizes all that damage mitigation from his passive as well as the tether to win a 1v1 up against Spudio, as well as tank up the Phoenix for his team for nearly an entire minute before Hex Mambo realized that tier 2 tower was still standing on the left-hand side, resustaining all the way with this Bumba's hammer. I mean, I called it mid-fight, and I mean it. Osiris is just gross right now when he's allowed to get to this portion of the game. Worth noting that Deathwalker's going to keep getting stronger. He's stacking. I know we're 30 minutes in, but he's only got 3 stacks on this Urchin, so he's got a little bit more defense coming his way as long as he's able to get active in some of these team fights, and I'm not sure who's stopping him. Look at Spudio's build. He's gone crit. Spectral is picked up for Deathwalker, so Spectral buff, crit nerf, means that as long as Deathwalker's got tether applied, I'm pretty sure this X-Ball's maybe critting for like 90 damage.
It's a very frightening day when Deathwalker can look at them and just tell them that this isn't even his final form. Like, he's still got more growing to do. He's on, like, Form 3, though, right? Like, if you're looking at Frieza now, we'll see whether or not this makes the big difference. Dives in. Look how tanky he
doesn't care.
The damage is good. The
He's
apple
winning.
has spread. Sarpei uses the destruction, does get the
goes.
kill. And it's 1-for-1 Spudio for Deathwalker. Kha'Zix gets burned down. E-Chrome and Johnny doing the damage necessary. Ollie trying to stay alive. Maybe peel, but does not have a leg to stand on. Sap chased down. Sap killed off. Guess what? Sarpei, you're next on the chopping block. Johnny will not stop. The stun is there, but he is full health, and you have 1 HP. Is Johnny going to be able to find it? Look at the speed buff putting in the work. And while he gets the triple, gets the deicide, the team runs down mid with their minions to the Titan room, Mifflin, and Mambo are going to close us out.
Hex Mambo in a war of attrition just brought more snacks. They were ready and prepared for these longer games, and Nieflheim Wargs, as a newer team, were not quite able to line up and finish out this set. But still worth noting that this new 3-man core of the Nieflheim Wargs were able to push Hex Mambo, a squad comprised of previous SPL talent and world champions, to a Game 3 situation. Now, I think my takeaway for this set is you should be excited to watch the Nieflheim Wargs play and continually iterate and refine their style, because very clearly this team is a looming threat.
I think that what we got to see, and you know, there's something to be said. Mambo this year didn't start out great for them, but up to Masters started looking a lot better, right? A lot stronger. What we got to see today was very typical of what I expect out of this team. It's surprising to see the Wargs do so well. Again, with all the roster swaps, that was an impressive set from them, and even being able to eke out a win. A lot of that one, though, it feels very similar to game number 1. Granted, maybe the first 5-6 minutes are still very much the inverse, right? We've gotten used to seeing Mambo win the early game. In game 2, it was that Gold Fury that turns things around. Here, Mambo just started farming better. They were down by 1,000 gold. They were down by 2 kills. Then they just ended up 1,000 gold up. They just ended up 2,000 gold up. Then they started winning fights.
Yeah, I believe it was 800 gold down where Hex Mambo by the time they pulled out their first objective, and the Nieflheim Wargs were a little bit slower on the uptake. A TKO onto Ollie allows Hex Mambo to pick up the objective, reset, and then go over towards the Gold Fury immediately afterward. Double objective play at around the 17-minute mark is where we started to see that lead established in favor of Hex Mambo. And once they got it, the Nieflheim Wargs weren't quite able to do much. But you're right to bring up that the early game was essentially completely inverse from the rest of this set in that the Nieflheim Wargs get first blood, second blood, and about a 2,000 gold lead. But they fall into the trapping of, hey, we got a lead. Let's just rotate into the late game with it. Let's maintain this lead until we get there. Experience gap, I think is what it was. They haven't got as many games under their belt as a team as Hex Mambo. So Hex Mambo, from a 2K deficit, just play the map better, get back to that even state, and establish the lead for themselves. Had the Wargs pushed the envelope, had they played with the lead while they had it, I mean, we might be singing their praises right now.
Yeah, talking about them getting Gold Furies, oh man, the pentakill that Sarpei ended up getting at some point in this alternate timeline led to their victory. Unfortunately, there is a 4-1-0. Sarpei looks really good. That is all they were able to get. 4-1-5. Johnny had chased them down at the very end just to make sure. The one death for the Deicide for the victory happening down towards the bottom end. Very, very solid play, though, from the Mambo. Good farming. You can see that in the GPM. Of course, they now find themselves up 1-0. 392.
63,000 mitigated. Did you see that?
I did not see that
Death
part.
Walker's crazy.
I was looking at the 392 GPM, which is like obnoxiously low. Like most losing teams we see, like 425 is like the lowest that you'll maybe in there. Anything below 400 has actually been foreign to me. That might be the first number with a 3 at the beginning. So poor Ollie did not get the farming. We can look, though, at the European schedule. Again, you watched a couple of sets of the SEC on Thursday. You watched one yesterday, closed out North America. You watched the first European set here this morning. You might be wondering, well, where can I catch the rest? Well, one's going to be later today after the SBL, which we're going to be getting to relatively shortly here. The Gladiators will take on the Ravens. And then tomorrow, after SBL, you'll be able to watch the Scorpions take on the Ferrymen. So again, today, the Bolts, the Scarabs, however that set goes for set number 2, whenever that closes out, you'll be able to watch some SEC, and then tomorrow you'll be able to close that one out after the Scarabs and the Warriors. So the Scarabs closing us out 2 days in a row for the SBL. And speaking of which, as much as I want to give congratulations to Hex Mambo, we've got an SBL to get to, and that's what I'm looking forward to right now, Mifflin. Dragons, the Valkyries are going to be coming up first, Bolts and Scarabs as well. I think you actually have this next set off, so you just get to relax
I'll be watching.
and watch the Benny Q versus Pagon, something that was very,
They take me
very
off the big
prized.
ones.
Yeah, we just didn't want you there. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a fun one to watch. SBL is going to be coming up shortly, though, guys, so stick with us. We'll be right back.